Good evening, everyone. This is the public participation meeting for Howell Township, and I'm calling it to order at 7:35. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please remain standing for just a moment, in a moment of silence, recognizing all those in service to others all over the globe, protecting our freedoms, and also serving us locally here in our with our emergency medical teams and the firemen and the police forces. Okay, thank you. Jill, can you read the opening statement and take the roll?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this public participation meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner. By the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on December 21st, 2005, by the faxing of copies of said notice to the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for publication on December 21st, 2005, by the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on December 21st, 2005. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civilian decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 1727. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room, to the rear they are to your immediate left, immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room at the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcasts on Howell Township TV 77. Mr. Mullivay?
Here.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Present.
Mr. Tabasco?
Present.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mayor DeBella?
He is away for tonight. Okay, this again is our public participation meeting, and just as a matter of protocol, tonight normally we start with the hearing of citizens, but we do have one presentation to make, so we'll do that first. After that, we will have the hearing of citizens, and then we also have on the agenda public hearings on this, the grants and on the municipal budget. I will ask that during the hearing of citizens, if you do have any questions about the budget, since you will have an opportunity to speak about them during the public hearing session on that, hold on to those thoughts and comments until we actually get into that public session. So anything else other than that, you can certainly feel free to speak about during the hearing of citizens. And now I'll ask our fellow council members to step on down. We have a presentation to make up front.
Just be careful of the wire on the side, please.
Thank you, Tom. Next week, we're going to have a number of citizens in here, all with regards to the Katrina relief effort. These two folks tonight were not able to be here next week, so they're here tonight. And I will say that a number of people during the disasters that were going on last year around New Orleans and elsewhere along the rivers there, a number of people from Howell did go down and help out quite a bit. So that's what this award is all about. Joe actually started this, Joe DeBella, the mayor, a while back. We called this the Howell's Finest Award. And I'm going to read you what one of them say, and then I'll bring the citizens up. And this again says, Howell's Finest Award presented to, and excuse me if I pronounced this wrong, Lagori Fankhauser, in recognition of your outstanding acts of compassion in the wake of the Hurricane Katrina disaster. You are hereby awarded this Howell's Finest Award. This special award recognizes your contribution in participating in the relief efforts in Howell Township designed to provide aid to the thousands of victims of this unparalleled American tragedy. This award symbolizes the great humanitarian spirit exhibited by you and all of the volunteers that participated in this massive effort. On behalf of a grateful community, we say thank you for your efforts in helping those in need and for bringing such honor and distinction to Howell Township. You are truly one of Howell's finest. Presented this 20th day of June, 2006, and it's signed by our Honorable Mayor, Joe DeBella. So will Lagori Fankhauser and Amy Fankhauser please come on up to the front. Did I?
Exactly right.
And this is Amy. Come on up.
Thank you. Take care of Anthony.
We'll get a picture. Would you like to say anything, Amy, about some of the efforts?
I had nothing prepared, just it was an honor to be able to reach out and do something and spend a day with my son and teach him a little bit about community service and some generous donations from everyone in the township. So there's a lot of Howell's finest roaming around Howell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
And this is Jaden. Then go sit down. Then go sit down.
All right. One more. All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. That's it.
Gets after one.
Sounds good. Oh, thank you.
Do we have the sign-in sheet?
Yes.
No, Miss Joe.
Okay. I have the sign-in sheet for the next part of the meeting, which is going to be the hearing of citizens, and there's actually only 2 names on here, so once we get through these 2 people, if you do still have other comments to make, just raise your hand and I'll recognize you. The first person to speak tonight is Barbara Dixell. So, Barbara, when you come up, say your name and your address, and then go ahead with your comments.
Deputy Mayor,
Mhm.
while Ms. Dixell is coming up, I have 2 announcements, if that's
Sure.
okay. First, I'd like to announce that the Howell Parks and Recreation Department will be hosting its annual Independence Day celebration on July 3rd, 2006 at Oak Glen Park. Festivities begin at 6 p.m., and the evening will include music, games, food, and fun for the whole family, capped off with a fantastic firework display. Shuttle buses will be available from the DPW and the Aldrich Park and Ride. And for further information, please contact the Howell Recreation Department at 732-938-4500, extension 2105. I wanted
Very
to
well.
make sure that got on TV before people turned off.
So again, it's going to be July 3rd.
That's the Monday night?
Yes, sir.
What is the rain date? If there's a rain day, will it be the following weekend?
Good question.
Let's hope it's good weather.
Being a member of the Optimist Club, it'll be sunny and a beautiful night for fireworks.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, Barbara, you're up.
Okay. Barbara Dixell, The Villages. Hi, everybody. Happy
Hello.
Father's Day. Hope you had a good one. Okay. Whole bunch of stuff. Okay. I have a bunch of stuff written down. I have newspaper articles, so I'm going to give them to you, too. Number 1, water company dates, New Jersey American Water Company. The hearings. There's a public hearing the week of July 19th. July 19th, Shrewsbury, 5 p.m., Westfield, New Jersey, 1 p.m., July 25th, West Hampton, 5 p.m., Ocean City, 1 p.m. This is for the New Jersey American Water Company hearing for whatever 25% rate increase that they want, and that the Villages is going there because this is the last rate case that we are entitled to be brought down to the GMS, the General Metered Services rate charged by the state, Jersey American Water Company. They charge their customers. This was as per Judge McAfoo's decision of 1999. We were entitled to the next 2 rate-based cases, which was one in 2004. This is the last one. So we're entitled to the last decrease. The intervener's hearing is September 25th. I understand I did speak with Mr. Gannon. We've been given intervener status. As far as I know, I went to the pre-hearing. I threw down the dates as fast as the judge said them. So June 30th, July 28th, August 28th, those are discovery dates. Hearings for the cases, October 16, 17, 19, 23, 25, 26, November 1, 2, 8, 13, 14, 16, 20, 21, and 28. I will try to make it my business to be at every one of them. Hopefully. Okay. Okay. That said, number 2, we need to upgrade the Howell Township Dangerous Dog Ordinance, and we need to list the breeds. I did a lot of research in the last week, and I personally delivered it to Mr. Chernetsky's hands and asked him, and I'm asking you also, we need to make a new ordinance, and people with any of the dangerous dog breeds that are listed need to carry liability insurance. And I'm going to read this to you, because this is from a law firm, but common dangerous dog breeds. In 2000, the Centers for Disease Control reported that 25 breeds of dogs were involved in 238 fatal dog bites. And from 1979 to 1998, and that more than 50% of the deaths for which the breed was known were caused by pit bull type dogs and Rottweilers. And again, due to the high cost of dog bite liability claims, some insurance companies have blacklisted certain breeds and are refusing to provide homeowners insurance for those who have these dogs. Interesting. And if you want, you want me to read the names of some of these? Anyway, I'm going to give this to, I've already given it to him, but interesting. Okay, schools. I'm not happy with the fact that the Board of Education had put no money aside for the grant money, the $250,000 that they had to come up with, and that we wound up having to put the match in for the security equipment for the schools. From what I understand, I was told by somebody that they weren't aware of that, the match. When the schools were, before they went to K through 5, they were K through 8, and 6, 7, and 8 went to the middle schools. The vice principals were retained in the elementary schools, and they hired new vice principals for grades 6, 7, and 8 in the middle schools. As far as I'm concerned, this is my opinion, it's a waste of money, and we're very heavy in middle management. We pay for union dues, hospital, all society and organization memberships, trips, lodging, meals, tips, to conventions during the school year. This would be, if some of these teachers and some of these things could be paid for by the teachers and the Board of Ed or whatever, it would be a saving of several $100,000. Some of this middle management really, to me personally, doesn't have to be there. They say they're autonomous. They do need, and they have to answer to nobody. That they keep saying that. And when I was a school board member, they kept saying they're autonomous. Well, they do need to answer to somebody. They need to answer to us, the taxpayers, because we pay for this budget in our property taxes. This budget was passed when the Howell Township Board of Ed sent home tons of literature through the kids, which to me, in my opinion, is not correct. I told everyone at the first meeting of the people before the new schools were built, Mrs. Schumacher was there, that I suggested that they not buy Haskell because I thought it would have contamination and dieldrin, which it did. It cost almost $500,000 to clean it up, which we also wound up paying for, which cost taxpayers. They could have bought any other piece of property in town that wasn't contaminated, but they insisted on buying that one. So I am not exactly very happy with our Board of Ed. So I'm going to say something. You may not agree with me. A lot of people may not agree with me, and I'm not against Howell Township's kids, but I think the Board of Education of Howell Township needs to get real. And maybe if people started voting down this Howell Township Board of Education budget, and the council started cutting $1 million out of the budget every year that they vote down, maybe they'll get real and decide to want to cooperate. Water. Tom's River indicted 2 ex-United Water Company executives for covering up high levels of radiation in the water system that may have caused cancer for many kids and people in Toms River. I know you can't tell water not to stop running, and I know you can't tell water not to enter our system or brick system, but how safe are we with all this level contamination and high levels of radiation in the water? Do we need to do another study, or do we need to find out with the high levels of radium and stuff that finding that they were concealed and covered up in the Toms River water that they now decided to indict these two people for? Do we have to do another something and figure out if our water system has been, set upon by any of, because we can't tell water to stop running, or we can't tell water not to enter the brick system or the Howell system. Water just runs wherever it needs to run.
I would venture to say that our systems have been tested ad infinitum the last number of years, but just as a matter of course, Bill, maybe you can say something. How often is, like for example, New Jersey American's water system tested, or?
It's in your water bill. You get a quarterly report where they've tested and what they've tested for. If you, I'm sure Barbara, you've read those reports.
No, but this is brand new. This just hit the papers.
Well, it's
and it's
You're referencing United Water, though.
United
New
Water,
Jersey
yeah.
American, correct? United Water.
So we have New
No.
Jersey American here locally. We have the Adelphia system, which is a New Jersey American. We have Ramtown Water has been tested.
Well, it's
A number
ongoing.
of ongoing tests on there.
okay. It's upsetting. Okay.
Of course.
Because we don't want to fall victim to any highly contaminated water from another utility which is close by to us encroaching into our system. So, and again, you can't tell water to stop running. It finds its way.
Right.
The only other thing I want to say is with reference to the school, the Howell Township baseball thing, do we really have to pay for that? And do we really have to do that? And
Well, I'll
should
hold
it be
off
the
on-
Little Leagues?
I'm sure that'll come up during the budget hearing, so I'll hold off on answering that from our level until we have that discussion.
Because, we're getting...
We don't have, in all fairness, we as the board, I don't feel I have, and I don't speak for the other, have all the facts in order on that
Okay.
situation yet. And I
But-
think we'll be enlightened this evening,
Yeah,
Barbara, so
because
let's
we're
work
getting
to
hit for a
address
lot of
that at that
money,
time.
and maybe it's time other entities chipped in and paid, and the taxpayers are getting kicked in the
I
butt.
think before we even address, I think in all fairness to all parties, that we need to hear what the manager has to say about that situation.
Yeah,
Okay?
all right, but like I said, I just don't feel that we need to burden taxpayers any more than we already have.
I agree with you.
Your points, sir?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I may just address that quickly, because the decision last week was that it's not going to be in this budget.
Right.
So frankly, it's not going to be discussed.
Oh.
It was listed under capital in the carryover in terms of what was introduced, but it's not going to be in what's being proposed for adoption. The decision last week was that item, if funded at all, would be treated as a separate capital ordinance. The reason we do a capital ordinance in this budget is we do a listing of capital projects in the budget so that we can give you one ordinance that covers everything to issue debt. The decision was that we're going to separate that, and if at the appropriate time the governing body decides it does want to fund it, it'll adopt that debt separately. But that decision won't come until there's a proposal to amend the agreement
Okay.
that was entered into last year. So, in fact, it's not part of our budget discussion. I mean, people can talk
Yeah, people
about
can-
whatever
yeah,
they like, but
perfect.
from my
Okay.
point of view, it's not in the budget.
It's not in our budget.
Okay, just my personal opinion, I'm opposed to making anything bigger than we already agreed to the first time, and paying more money and just keep paying and paying and paying. We got to stop paying, and taxpayers in the town need relief.
Your point well intended.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, next up is Jack Brannon. And Jack, also, when you come up, state your name and address and what you're looking to speak with us about. Any action you want us to take?
Jack Brannon, 16 Woodland Drive. My first question actually was going to be posed for the mayor, but maybe somebody else can answer it. On the Howell Times, June 9th, from the desk of the mayor, okay, there was a section in here that referenced the says, "We are also lobbying the state for new traffic signal for the exit at Aldrich Road, and we hope to have new traffic routes in place over the new several weeks." It's bad English, but basically, I think they're trying to redesign the traffic pattern at Aldrich Road. Do you have a conceptual idea of what the mayor was talking about?
From my understanding, I'll let Tom talk in a minute. From what I can recall, when we had a conversation with the DOT, they were basically just going to affect the timing of the light. Which
Is that all that?
Yeah. Other than that, I didn't think there was anything else other than what might be tied into what you want to talk about next, which is eventually when the hotel, if it does come in, they'll change everything around that area. But go ahead, Tom.
That sentence was in a paragraph that was, I think, advising
Part of Winston Park.
advising
situation.
residents that the equipment to initiate the Winston Park closures has come in, and we're just waiting for a couple final things. So that particular sentence was included in that paragraph.
Okay.
So I'm not clear exactly what the reference was to there.
That's-
It could have been a number of things.
But I
was looking
do
for
recall they
clarification is
were.
what
I do
I was
recall they
looking
were
for.
affecting the timing of that light. I guess as a separate action from what Tom just brought up, which is the pylon and stuff over by.
Okay. The next thing I really wanted to clarify something was, it's in reference to, again, the hotel or conceptual hotel that's being kicked around out there. About 3 months ago, at one of the meetings where we were exchanging back and forth, the classification of C1 waterway came up in discussion, and somebody said that is not a C1 waterway. I did some research. I wrote a letter to the state. I wrote a letter actually to the Watershed Management Regulations Division, and I received a letter back. It took about 6 weeks to get back. And the reason I wanted to clarify it for public record is basically, and I can give a copy to anybody up there, but it will be going to the Environmental Commission for review, that section of Plover's Brook is not a C1 waterway, but Plover's Brook is, and it's the headwaters thereof. And under the Act, it would be considered under the protection thereof. So there is a 300-foot buffer zone that would be in effect for anything that goes on that property. Needless to say, it was hotel, office complex. And the reason I bring that up is if you look at, again, conceptual plans that are on file at planning, if you look at this and you look at their scale, and I take their scale and I go 300 feet, I would say, if this is correct, I phrase it that way, that the 300-foot buffer is not in place on their plans. And I'm going to ask the Environmental Commission to take a real hard look at this.
Well, just for the benefit of the public, then I'll engage Tom Gannon for a second here, because this has come up before with other waterways where they were not technically sections that were in Category 1, but other parts were. So, for example, over by where the Wawa used to be, Wyckoff Road back there, and again from the Manasquan River out towards Ketchum Road, to that distance had been Category 1, but past it had not been. So, Tom, I guess the question becomes what Jack just brought up, in your knowledge of Category 1 waterways, if a section is not actually part of a Category 1 waterway, the new rules say they'd still get 300-foot protection.
They're headwaters of a Category 1 waterway. And I got that, like I said, I got it directly from the Regulation Division of DEP.
Well, if we're talking in general propositions, we have our own riparian ordinance, which is being reviewed by the Environmental Commission for compliance with certain DEP restrictions. But I would assume that the law would be interpreted in the spirit of what it was passed, which was to protect our potable waterways. So in that case, an argument could be made hypothetically that they would be subject to the buffer.
If there's any ambiguity, we need to make sure there isn't going forward. So we'll take what you brought up as comments into consideration. Look at
there's
it.
a state law, and then there's our own ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
And the state law is we can't supersede that, but we can enforce it within the spirit of the law, and then we have our own ordinances. So
one of the key words you used there, Jack, was
we're not here to entertain, due deference here, specific applications because there's so many
I-
variables.
I
I
went-
don't want
I
to
went-
mislead anybody one way or the other.
No, I understand. I
What
just
you
went-
said, Jack, makes sense to me.
So, I went for land use. It doesn't matter what goes on the land. It will fall under, no matter what goes there.
Disturbance, yeah.
Correct. So I'm going to have the Environmental Commission review the letter and probably make recommendations at
And
that
they'll
point back
report
to the
us.
zoning board.
Once they look at it, they'll report back to us, too. But go ahead, Cindy. Looks like you have-
If I can make in light of that, I had a phone call from a concerned citizen, young lady down in Winston Park, and one of the things that someone had expressed to her was that there was a map on file in our library that showed the water areas of our community, and that she was told, and I told her that I would have someone look this up, that Aldridge Lake at one time went all the way back into the Winston Park, into that area.
That I'm not sure of.
And I would like to find out if that, she is extremely concerned because they had substantial flooding and still have substantial flooding from when 195 came in that area. I could hear a tremendous amount of concern and fear in this woman's voice. I told her that I would come down sometime this week to see her, because she wanted to take me in her basement and show her that she indeed has 4 sump pumps in there, and she's truly fearful of what's going to happen in that area. And I told her that we would look into that, because that's something that I think would be...
She's fearful when we dredge it, I guess? Is that what she's...
No, she's fearful that if...
Of runoff,
of
is what she's-
runoff of what could occur there if a hotel, the disturbance of the property in those areas. She said because when the property was disturbed for 195, they had tremendous amount of flooding in that area. And at the time, they couldn't get the State Department. And she said, my husband worked for the State Department, and I can't remember... He wasn't an engineer. He had, I don't know what he did on that, when 195, if he was a program coordinator or what, but he was involved in it. And she said, we could not get anything done down here. She said there were people that worked very hard to help contain the flooding. And she said they got no help from the state, no help from the
Well,
county. No help from the community at all in that respect. So I just want to make sure that we look at all avenues that we can give those people that are in that area, some people that have been there. She's been there for 28 years, I believe. And
Well, in a very general discussion, maybe Bill knows the answer to this, since he's had a lot of touches with the Aldridge Lake scenario over the past number of years, but which way does the water flow from the lakes? Does it flow towards 9 or away from 9?
It flows away from 9.
So it flows towards the lake.
It flows from that area east of Route 9, under Route 9, around, actually through the center of Winston Park, by the baseball field, and then back behind Winston Park, all the way down to Aldrich Lake, and then from there into the Metedeconk.
The only analogy I know of, years ago, when they built the Seaview Square Mall, the water flowed from that mall towards Deal Lake over out the eastern part of Monmouth County, and it actually cut the flow down where there was less water in the lake. So if you're telling me it flows that way, precedent says it might actually work in reverse of what the fear is, but I'm no environmentalist, but we'll have the environmental committee look at it.
Like I
and,
said, I just wanted to make sure that there was no misconception, because I wanted clarification from writing the state, and this is what I got back. And basically it says that even though it's not on their maps as C1, that section, Plover Brook, on the westbound side is, but this is the headwaters thereof, and it would fall under the protection
all of your
thereof.
points have been good ones, so we'll take all of that into consideration. And
Well, it is difficult. Somebody brought me onto the state maps last week, and Harm's Pinnacle's in the state sewers. Says that it's sewered. It's something to look into. I'd appreciate it, Tom.
well, you were
I mean,
told it was in the 208 plan?
It shows in this, they put me on the IMAP. In,
You can go right to IMAP, and you can look at the overlay of the C1 right on IMAP.
It's right
and
there.
you can see it.
it shows that the Harm's Pinnacle is in a sewer.
It's in a sewer service area? Or
Yep,
it's-
sure is.
I didn't,
And I wonder why it contradicts with the county and what we say here. And it could just be the information wasn't given to the state. But, I mean, what do you go by if we walk into a court, Tom? Do we go by the state maps? If a builder goes in with state maps showing it's in the sewer plan, and the county and the township maps show it's not, what do you go by?
Well, that'll be all subject to the planning board's review and stuff.
Well,
I go by whatever the mayor and council direct me to go by. But I think a lot of times with the plans, it states sometimes if the county gives them a new plan, they're slow to adopt it. But from my standpoint, from the municipality standpoint, the 208 plan was amended and the county accepted it in order so that Harms and Pinnacle were not in that
Right.
208 plan. But we can follow up on it. Sometimes it's just a question of updating the records.
Well, the thing that the state said to me when I had lengthy discussions on the phone with them is they use the USGS quadrant map to go by. And I said, if there's a discrepancy between the state and USGS, who wins out? He said the USGS wins out.
Well, you're talking about what body you're talking about.
But there's discrepancies all the time, and that's what they base their decision on is
Well,
USGS.
somebody pointed out to me, and I'd just like our manager to look into it.
I will.
See why the state map is different than the county map, is different from what I've seen here on this bulletin board.
Yeah.
Because my decisions have to be based on what the professionals are telling me and what I'm shown by our professionals.
Well, this whole application, just to let everybody on council know, people in our neighborhood got registered letters 10 days ago. They asked for a renewal of the DEP processes that were filed back in 2004.
When you say they ask for renewal, who's that?
The Northwoods Center LLC, the people who are proposing the hotel complex.
Okay.
And it's going for review, from what I understand, to Environmental Commission this Friday. They have sent a packet to the clerk. The clerk forwarded it to Planning and Zoning, and it's being forwarded on to Environmental for review.
So is this going before the zoning board?
It's going to Environmental at this point. They'll look at it, and then I guess it's going to go to their recommendations to zoning. Is that the proper?
The application was filed at the zoning board. If they filed a complete application, they're entitled to a hearing at the zoning board.
Yeah.
The zoning board relies on groups like the Environmental Advisory Group for their recommendations.
And we still have no height ordinance in place. Is that correct, Tom?
That's correct.
That's my next question.
Why? What are we doing? I mean, I'm speaking to the rest of the council here. Why are we leaving ourselves out there with no height ordinance and applications coming in?
We are, as we alluded to last week, we are going to be talking about that as one of the first things that we do talk about when we talk about the ordinances coming up. But also, it's not like there's no protection. There's still there has to be side yard setbacks which protect properties right now.
We could have protected this a few months ago when we first found out there was no height ordinance. I mean, it sure seems to me like this is dragging your feet. And the township and the residents here of this township deserve that protection. I mean, I don't understand. I'm really at a loss here.
Well, Chuck's not here to defend himself, but I think he actually already did a lot of work on that, and he's going to be presenting it. Is it next week or
next week?
Next week,
Next
yeah.
week for introduction.
Well, my question is I was at the last council meeting. Did they pull the height ordinance from the hotel ordinance as a separate ordinance?
No. The last time, the reason the height ordinance wasn't introduced was because we wanted to have some consistency, and we wanted to see where the hotel was going to settle out.
Okay.
In terms of
What I'm saying is
recommendations.
it going to be part of the hotel ordinance or a separate ordinance?
No, it'll be separate because I expect there'll be more conversation on the hotel ordinance.
Okay. My question is, will
Yes, exactly.
both of these
And that's what Chuck said last week.
ordinances be presented or voted on at the same time?
Well, I'm hoping that the height ordinance is introduced next week. And I'm hoping...
That didn't answer my question.
So
So
no.
both of these ordinances be presented and voted on at the same time?
If
Not
council
likely.
is
Then
satisfied...
I think you should pull one without the other. I can't see why you're going to pass a hotel ordinance potentially without a height restriction in there. If anything, the height restriction should be the first thing to be voted on
Well,
at
that's
that
the
point,
order
and then the
that's
hotel
the order.
should be the second.
That's the order it's
Okay,
happening.
just want to make sure that was
Yeah,
clarified.
that'll happen.
The ordinance for hotel has a height restriction, but there's going to be a height restriction. You generally have two-tier height restrictions,
Okay.
35 feet for residential,
Okay.
34, and then you have to determine how it's measured, crown of the height, et cetera, et cetera.
I
And then there's
understand.
a
I just want to
commercial.
make sure that
I'm not
it
sure the
wasn't
council understands
tabled
your
for a
question.
couple of months on the height
No, no,
ordinance
no,
while
no,
the
no.
hotel ordinance goes through.
No, there's...
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
So let me understand this. We're going to introduce the height ordinance next week.
That's great. Well, let me just have a 30-second discussion. The planning board made a bunch of recommendations as to what they wanted the master plan to be, and to enable that, we have to pass a number of ordinances. And when Chuck was sitting where you're sitting last
Right.
week, he said, obviously, in this town, one of the first ones we want to address is the height ordinance. So
Right.
Tom has now concurred.
Well, that's why I wanted to clarify it, because it wasn't very clear to me last week anyway, when I was here.
Wasn't clear to me either, Jack, so you're not alone.
Okay.
All right, but you just come back next week if you want to.
Oh, I'll be
There
here. The
be
reason I wanted to mention that, because this is the packet that was sent to the town, and actually, Bill, I think you got a copy of this, it says, and is being forwarded to the Environmental Commission, and this is from Northwoods LLC for review from the Environmental Commission. So things are working or moving forward with this. I just want people to be aware. And the last thing is, this situation, it's been all over the papers about the Little League North. And it really, I hate to say it, has given Howell sort of a black eye on about this, if you read in the papers. To me, it's sort of, I hate to say this, it's, in my opinion, turned into some kind of debacle, the whole thing at this point. If you drive by the complex, it looks like a World War II pillbox out in the middle of a field. All right, it's got no windows, it's got no roof, it is hideous at this point. I want to know, and I am requesting, and I think other taxpayers of this town will be requesting, a breakdown on how that $150,000 is going to be spent or was spent. I understand, I talked to Tom ahead of time, that the check apparently has not been transferred over, but they spent that money based on a promise that was made to them. Would that be a correct assumption to say?
They spent money on a building, which we were to, according to the agreement, we were to take possession of this building after an assessment.
Okay.
So sort of like a broad-based accounting.
Okay.
Very broad-based accounting. And then upon certification that it's valued at least that much, we would transfer those funds over.
Okay.
That's the current agreement.
Okay. My question is, and I read it in the paper, and I was here at the last meeting. Apparently, the building was approved for 2,700 square feet. Okay. Nobody seems to dispute that. How does that evolve into, depends on who you listen to, either 3,900 square feet or 4,400 square feet without anybody raising an eyebrow about this? I think that is ludicrous. I think there were a lot of changes, may not have been run by certain people in town, and I'm not pointing the finger, but somebody better look into this, all right? Because I'm telling you right now, I don't think another dime should be spent on that until there's some accountability on what the hell happened here. I think it's absolutely, it's a shame.
Well, we all agree with you. And last week, that was the action that Tom, there was going to be an accounting of what has happened and some tracing of history.
And if somebody can't come up with a clear definition of what happened, maybe the Monmouth County prosecutor should look into this, okay, at that point. And I'm not kidding, all right? This is ridiculous. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but somebody dropped the ball somewhere along the line here. And you know who's going to suffer? Is going to be the kids that play up there. And that's the sad part. Well, the taxpayers as well, but the kids are going to look at a structure there that's not done at this point. And I don't think we should pay that extra, according to the paper, $260,000 more. That's ludicrous.
Points all well taken. Anything else, Jack?
That's it.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, if I may,
Sure.
just one, before you go, I would ask, with respect to the height ordinance and the concern about applications come in, I would just ask our attorney to explain the time of decision rule, which may alleviate some anxiety.
That's the general proposition that whatever ordinance or regulation is in effect at the time of an approval, that is the ordinance that carries the day.
So
Okay.
that could,
And
In
second,
essence, if there's a height ordinance that's passed, that is the rule with the hotel, in the hotel. That is what carries at that point.
right. And also, I'm not aware of an application, but you're saying there may be an application before the Board of Adjustment? Okay.
I don't know. All I know is this right here, this document, which I copied 45 pages of 60 pages that has been submitted to the town, and it was sent to Bruce Davis, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking to where it was sent to. Yes, from Bruce Davis, town clerk. It was sent to his office, which he forwarded to planning, and I'm assuming you have a copy of it as well at this point. It says CC to you. And it's a letter of interpretation and filing.
Well, that's with the NJDEP.
Right.
Okay.
But it's to be reviewed by our environmental
Right.
commission.
If there is an application for use...
I don't know if there's or not.
All right, I'll just, hypothetically, if you have an application for use before a Board of Adjustment, the Board of Adjustment has carte blanche to decide the height, width, et cetera, because the use is not allowed, so that any condition that they deem necessary, assuming they meet the negative and positive criteria, which is very difficult to meet, then the board can put whatever reasonable regulations, conditions on the approval.
Okay.
Height, egress, site work, et cetera. And so, from a standpoint of having no authority, that's not true when you go before the Board of Adjustment. Those 7 people have tremendous authority over what's to be built there, if it's going to be built at all, when you're dealing with a use that's not allowed in a zone. And the time of the essence rule basically says that up until you have approval, even if you had filed the application, up until the time of the approval, if an ordinance is passed or a regulation, that will govern the application.
My next question, one last question is, when it pertains to the C1 waterway, I know it was adopted by the state, I think, was it 2003, later half of 2003?
No, the buffers.
Yes, and then it was challenged, and I know there was a ruling quite recently that upheld that buffers.
That's correct.
My question is, and not directly at you, but probably to the Environmental Commission, this, I think, was dated 3 of 2003, and that may have been prior to the C1.
Right. Well, that's the LOI deals with the wetlands, too. You got to remember.
No, there's a whole, I mean, I read through this a number of
Right.
times. There's pages upon pages
Right.
upon pages.
Now, this part that we could take offline now.
It deals with a lot of the different wetlands and/or riparian buffers. You can have a wetland that's not in a riparian buffer and vice versa, right?
I understand, but my point is if the C1 classification came in after this impact statement and everything else was filed,
It'd be
should
up
they adjust their impact statement?
Yes, my opinion, they should.
Thank you.
Okay. I did say I would give the public an opportunity for those that have not signed the list, so I got to hold my word. Is there anybody else out there who would like to speak about anything else? And I'll give you one opportunity.
There's 3 people.
There's 3 people. After those 3 people speak, we'll cut this off. All right, so we'll start at the back. Kevin, you first, since they were, and work our way forward. When you come up, please state your name and your address and what you'd like to talk about.
My name is Kevin Dunshee. I live at 13 Spicy Pond Road. Just walked in from the fields at North Howell and caught the tail end of what was being spoken about. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to you again tonight. Just to kind of clear up the record, I know that the Asbury Park Press had some information in it too, and I know this is not going to serve as a newsflash to everybody, but don't believe everything that you read in the newspaper. To begin with, just to clear the record on this, North Howell League has not, in fact, spent $150,000 as yet on the project. The town itself has not spent dime one on the project because it's been privately financed. Tomorrow, if the town gave us the okay, we would put the windows and we could put the roof on. So it's not a shell of a building that's going to be sitting there unused as it was expressed in now 2 articles in the newspaper. And that's unfortunate that happened, and that was because some people who aren't involved in the project have no knowledge of the project and, in fact, what's going on, made some very irresponsible statements about the project. What's happening right now is that through my meeting with Helene Schlegel and Tom Trineski, we've arranged for the architect to get together with the building department so that some decisions can be made on how to proceed with the project. But just for point of clarification for everyone, this decision on how to build this and how to go about it, et cetera, was something that was decided on by a prior organization before North Hadley League took control of the organization about 1.5 years or 18 months ago, and kind of dropped on our lap. This individual who was running the organization, and I happened to be here the day that he came here, asked for $150,000 from the council. Council agreed to that. Then there was some type of an agreement about how that would be paid and how it would be restructured, et cetera. When we took over the Little League, that thing was kind of dropped on our lap. What I think people have to understand is that we took the project over. We instead of having 3 pieces of paper was essentially a sketch of a building, we actually did the due diligence to have an architect do all the work on it, to get the mechanicals, the HVAC, to get a site plan, which hadn't been done, to get a septic design, which had not been done. There was nothing approved. When all of that happened and we began work on the project in stages, it became clear that this was simply not a $150,000 project. The HVAC alone, and through Mrs. Schlegel, we tried to see if there was a way that we could bring the cost of that down, is $74,000. The septic system, as required by the town, is $50,000. The electric, because the building is set so far off of the street, is $50,000, and the wiring has to be run so that at some point in time, we can bring our Little League up to speed with others and have lights for our kids. So there's a lot of electric that has to go into that building. So the plumbing is between $35,000 and $40,000. So before you put a brick in the ground, ladies and gentlemen, you're up $200,000, and we haven't even started construction of the building at that point. At this point, I mean we have, but without even starting construction, you're up to $200,000 in costs. About 2 months ago, we came to the town, explained what was going on, and asked if there was a way that we could amend the original agreement, and if the town could in fact bond for the additional money. For those who aren't aware, we've also made I had a discussion with the mayor, I had a discussion with Councilman Walsh, I had a discussion with Mr. Schlegel, I had a discussion with Mr. Trineski about the fact that North Howell Little League for the last 2 years has been very profitable. We hadn't been the 2 prior years. And we expect that even though this was dropped on our lap, we took the project over and quickly saw that it was going to be much more expensive than was originally accounted for with the 150. We understand that we have a responsibility, we want to be a good neighbor, and whatever we can do to mitigate that through some type of contribution on an annual basis, et cetera, we're willing to do that, and we're willing to talk about that and partner along with the town in order to do this. But it's unfortunate that some people have said things like, and now it's on boards, community boards, et cetera, you know, this building could have been put up in 2 weeks. I've done some work on my home in this town, and I know other people around here have too. You can't get an inspection in 2 weeks. To suggest that a building could be put up.
Let's not go that far. You get an inspection.
I apologize. But I mean, you know, and that it can be done for $150,000 when the very builder that individual was working with said that that's impossible, that it could never been done for that. There just wasn't enough due diligence done on the project as it began. It fell on North Howell Little League's lap, and I just think it's unfortunate that our league, which has done a great job in kind of rising from the ashes here, is being called into question about it. We're doing, I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
No, I thought you were done. I didn't want to
It's
interrupt
quite
you.
a diatribe, so maybe I should take a
Well,
breath.
thank you for your comments once again. When this does come up, now actually it is not part of tonight's budget discussion, but when it does come up, and it will probably come up soon, in future meetings I mean, obviously we'll have you back again, and people will be willing and able, I'm sure, to come up and comment about it as well. But there'll be a whole process going about how we're going to bring this to fruition, because obviously we want the kids to have a building at some point. And if you're already saying you're helping and willing to help pony up as a league to make this come to fruition, that's great already, but we'll have deeper discussions about it.
We've said it on the record to some people. That didn't make its way into the newspaper, and things like that don't in fact sell newspapers. But this is an incredible community project. We've had great volunteerism there. We've had, you know, for example, the plumbing, et cetera. It was, you know, no cost to us. The windows that we're waiting to put in and the labor for the windows, completely free by Silverline Windows. So we're continuing. When this project is done, I mean, estimates are going to be $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 is what this building will in fact be worth. And if the town in fact purchases it from North Howell Little League, it's not going to be near that amount. Just one other thing I want to clear up again. I didn't even know there was such a thing as community boards till recently. I was told about them and took a look. The property itself is owned by the township. The building will, in fact, be owned by the township. So in spite of the fact that we're breaking our back, we're calling in favors, we're doing a lot of the work that ourselves, we're getting union guys in there and having them work for less than they would normally charge. In spite of all of that, the building at some point in time is going to be turned over to the people of Howell, and it's going to be a beautiful building, and it's going to be there for 50 or 100 years, and a great legacy for both this council and those of us who have worked so hard on it. And also, please remember, everybody, that that building with that room upstairs is available for any sports organization to use. It's not a North Howell Little League building. It's a township building that we'll be occupying with a concession stand to make some money, to expand our fields as our league continues to grow, and to get lights on those fields so our league can be like the other leagues in town. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Next is John Costigan.
While John's coming up, I'd like, Mr. Dunshee,
Kevin,
while John's coming, I'd just like to make one comment too. I guess I've been here the longest sitting up here, and it's unfortunate that people capitalize on the negativity of projects and not on the positive aspect of what you're trying to do. So I apologize on behalf of those that make you feel less of a person for the good deed that you were doing, and hope that you continue to work in a positive fashion.
We will, Mrs. Schumacher, and I truly appreciate you saying that. It means a lot. And while I just was passing, and I understand that there was that article, and that was picked up from another article, and editorial was written. Please remember that figure of 260, we were asked by Mr. Chernesky, if no one ever volunteered another dime, if nothing else good happened to you guys in terms of all that the good that you're trying to create there, what could this, in fact, possibly cost? Because as a town, we may have to budget for that amount. What is the worst possible scenario? And that's where that figure was derived from. We have not come to the town and said, we need $260,000. The town has not given us a dime for this project so far. Again, it's been financed privately. And if, in fact, the building is what we says it is, and if it's a good investment for the Township of Howell, then, of course, we're going to work out some type of an agreement that makes sense for all sides. But, again, North Howell Little League, we're having a great couple of years. We're extremely profitable. We, in a little tiny rat-infested shack, which our girls got on their hands and knees and put tiles in and made a beautiful place with cappuccino, which Mrs. Schlegel enjoyed on opening day, et cetera. We made $33,000 in that little godforsaken shack that I'm telling you, if about 4 of us leaned on it, it would push over. But we've been working out of that for 20 years. We were in the back of a firehouse a few short years ago. We finally have some nice fields. We're going to have a beautiful building, and it's going to be great for all the people in Howell. And we will do everything that we can to continue to cooperate with the council. And just so everyone else knows, every receipt that North Howell Little League has from that building, everything that we've spent, we've turned over 2 months ago to the town council, along with our financial reports, which are available at every one of our meetings. We have open meetings every 2 weeks. We have a bank president who's our treasurer. Our financial reports are given to all members. They can go line by line and ask for every dime that's spent. And we turn all our financial reports into Mrs. Schlegel, and I know no other organization, sports organization in town does that and is diligent about that. So unfortunately for me, if I'm a little emotional about some things that are in the paper, please understand that. And again, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
good luck.
Doing a good job. Doing a good job, Kevin. Keep it up.
All right, John, come on up. Again, state your name and address and what you want to talk about and what action you want us to take.
John Costigan, 214 Birdsall Road. I just want to talk about the farmland preservation for a second and point out some differences between this town and another town. And the other thing is, Mr. Schumacher, you may have been here the longest, but you look the youngest to me.
Hey, no.
Flattery get you everywhere, John.
Number one, I was busy last week, had leadership things on the county level, so. But I thank you, the council, I'm sorry the mayor's not here, but I thank the council for passing those 4 forms, the 16%, and we're hoping to close those before the end of the year, and we have a few more that's in the pipeline. I went up to another township. In fact, the township that after I was born in Riverview Hospital, that's the township I started out in life. It was all farms at that time, and now it's pretty well built out. And I went up to this township, a well-run township, to help plead the case for saving a farm up there, a farm that's been around since my family's been around in the middle 1800s. And the state and the county are willing to preserve it, but the township was worried about the money. And the meeting went on till midnight, and they did take a break in executive session, and they did the right thing. They're going to contribute their share to the township, to the process of preserving that 30-acre farm. It's a beautiful farm. that whole area was Ringwood Farms. But enough said about that. But I want to thank you because we don't have that trouble here in this township. You guys willingly pay the 16% that we have to pay, and we try and save what we can. Up there, it's other towns, it's not that way. There's a big difference. So I thank you very much.
You're
Well,
welcome.
John, we thank you for all your hard work.
Okay. Again, state your name and address and what you want to talk about.
Well, at Brado, 5 Railroad
Uh,
Avenue.
Sit down first comfortably, and then.
Paul at Brado, 5 Railroad Avenue, Farmingdale,
Hi,
New
Paulette.
Jersey. And I'm here to speak about Renaissance at Colts Neck. We're about to celebrate the 230th year of America's revolt against tyranny. However, King George's governing philosophy survives in local government. Farmingdale Estate LLC was regaled by the mayor for treating Howell residents as country bumpkins. The mayor expressed his angst at being insulted by the developer. On May 25, 2006, the planning board entered into an executive session and voted in public on a deal with the new developer of Crawford Crossings, the new Renaissance at Colts Neck. The development now has an addition of 72 homes. It still infringes on the C1 waterway, Marsh Brook, east and west branches. No configuration has been revealed with regard to these additional 72 affordable homes. The board's vote was buried on page 22 of the Tri-Town, along with a 9,600 square foot commercial component to be added later. I am insulted. This township is treating us like country bumpkins by elected officials. The assault goes back to the previous administration. Township officials knew that residents did not approve of the project. Come out of the back room and tell us what the real deal is. It must be awful if it had to be withheld from the community. The continued lack of formal master plan leaves the residents at the mercy of aggressive developers. Let's not be another Cherry Hill. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I'll just make a very brief comment. I think you're talking about Colts Neck Crossing up there by Colts Neck and 33?
Yes.
Okay, you said Renaissance for a second, confused me a
Well,
little
that's
bit.
the new name, the new developer.
Right. Well, and you probably are already well aware of this, but this current administration, actually, two of the other gentlemen are not here tonight, but myself and Joe and Wayne Lucy, when we sat here, we actually had public hearings about that site, trying to kill it. So a judge ruled against the town, and because of that, discussions go on. So it wasn't for lack of effort that development is still going in there. So the previous administration did do some spot zoning, and it did get approved, but it had already gone through a complete planning process, and they were approved. So it was a ruling that we didn't like, but unfortunately it was made.
And I understand it's still in appeal,
What's still in appeal?
the new ruling.
No.
No, that's not the case anymore.
Well, that's what,
Well,
Well, let her-
yeah, we'll let Tom.
Well, we're going to have this on for next Tuesday for discussion and ratification, similar to that what the planning board did, but we'll have all the details. But essentially, the matter is in appeal in a certain extent, but it's in limbo because the judge indicated that it might be in the best interest of everybody to discuss it. And so we've gotten a number of concessions as a result of our appeal, and including a diminution of the market by a certain percentage of the market units, and actually construction or at least approval for many units that are above what our COA obligation would be. In fact, this one had really no COA obligation, so we're going to, it's a positive aspect in terms of that. So it was a difficult situation for this governing body in light of the court's rulings and the fact that the traditional holding was once they got preliminary and final approval, they were able to build the way they were building. But because the action that was taken in court, there were significant changes, at least in my opinion, to the betterment of the project, including the COA. And I think they were knocking off 13 market units. So
And-
it's not something that we all jump and joy and think about, but it's something that'll be on for discussion next week, too.
But I attended these hearings, and I understand what was going on. And I have no objection to COA, but it has not been stipulated publicly what those COA units are going to be. Are they going to be middle America, or are they going to be age restricted? The developer already said he could not put COA in there because anyone that could not afford a full-price unit could not afford the fees that went along with belonging to that community.
No, rather,
So we're going from 400 to almost 600 homes, but nobody knows how many are age-restricted, how many are general market for a regular family, what the situation is going to be, and the developer has no interest in what the traffic pattern is going to be there. That's a blinker light, okay? You putting 600 homes there is outrageous.
a lot of the points you're bringing up now, we don't necessarily disagree with. What I will tell you, though, is that nothing is ever done totally in private. Eventually has to come out here in public. So next week, again, there'll be opportunities to discuss this a little further from the public.
But this was not even on the agenda. If it
It
would
is
have been
now.
on,
For when?
for May 25th, it was not on the agenda. The only thing that was on the
You're
agenda,
referring to the planning board's agenda?
right,
Oh, okay.
it was not on the planning board's agenda at all. And I appreciate your disclaimer that you can change things. But you didn't even tell the public that was here for the original thing, that you were changing things in the back room. What I'm saying is, there's too much hidden about this. This has been a controversial issue since day one. We've got C1 waterways that are not, we're not getting buffers from the original person that started with this project, which was not even this administration. I grant you that.
Let me just say
there was
something. Paul.
there was some time of the essence questions.
Besides that, the court held a hearing on the fairness of the application, and there was a master who testified from the COA standpoint, who was actually paid for by the developer, but who put 5 or 6 stipulations in there with regard to the COA aspect of it. And our COA attorneys and planners reviewed it, and they were satisfied that, from at least the COA standpoint, that it was the right thing to do on that site in lieu of the commercial. So they're putting it on the commercial, and they're also going to make the, from my understanding, the COA housing will be, while it will be inclusive into the actual other units, it'll be adjacent there too, and they'll enjoy all the amenities of the Renaissance. And that was something that was, that
Are we
will
allowed to
be
talk
age
about-
restricted.
Can we talk about that, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, we're
But
going to have a formal discussion Tuesday,
Next week.
But that
we can
doesn't
discuss it.
negate what happened on the 25th. And that is what I am upset
Well,
about.
as
You-
You understand where I'm...
Rightfully so. I had no idea it wasn't on the planning board the 25th either.
well, we did.
Exact-
The council knew.
Well, but,
Well, let me address that. Now, look, we're elected
right,
Discuss the litigation.
to represent the public. Things happen sometimes where we have to represent the town in a time of the essence type situation, but eventually that still has to come out in front of the public. And I'm telling you, this situation was exactly that. There was no time
And
to
what I'm
come
saying-
out at the planning board level before the public first at a council meeting. It had
but
to
a
go to the
time
planning
of
board,
the
and it'll be
essence
public next
issue
week.
is, you can't now take it back.
It's, well, that's,
Ah,
It's not- that's not completely true, actually, but there will be-
But we couldn't take back the approvals no matter what. We were ordered by a judge
Right.
to put the approvals back as they were.
there's
Well,
still a public hearing next week.
Well, and I won't know that until 20 minutes before, because the mail comes to, the agenda comes to me the day of the meeting. I don't know who your post office people are, but you got to send them out earlier. I mean, not that I don't show up anyhow, but I'm saying, the secrecy is
There's no-
suspect.
There's no secrecy. There's no secrecy.
That's her opinion. That's her
Exactly. My opinion is, somebody ran this in the back room, and the public is now not going to even, doesn't even know what happened. Page 22 on the newspaper, not front page.
Paulette, I will tell you, and this is the last comment I'm going to make about this, that Joe and Wayne and I put our necks on the line out in public fighting this site.
I know,
Right,
I've
so
been there. I've been there with you.
We're a year past that. There was a ruling by a judge. We had to honor that. We have to make a decision as elected officials. Are we going to spend really hundreds of thousands of dollars in a negative situation and put good money after a bad decision? Or are we going to try to do something which represents the other 52,000 people in the best way? That's what we did. But that still does not mean it stays private. It has to come out in public, and that is exactly what's happening next week.
But you understand, from my standpoint, the cart is coming after the vote.
This has been a 3 or 4 year
I
ordeal.
know.
It's not like it was happening in a back room one day. And
That's how it appears, and
we
appearances are...
heard your opinions.
We'll make up for whatever the planning board didn't do next Tuesday.
But how about getting this master plan finalized so we don't have these issues
we talked
and
about that
aren't
earlier.
pressured by developers to do things that the community doesn't want? The community helps you set up the master plan.
For whatever reason, it took 12 years from when the last one was done. This administration, right, there was stuff that had been going on, but it didn't get finished. We oversaw that it did get completed. The planning board has given their stuff to the council now, and over the next several months, we will be dealing with each of the ordinances one by one to get that master plan done. So your point is well taken, but we are doing exactly what you want. We'll try to get this finished very soon.
Thank you.
And that closes the public session. It's now 8:40. We have 2 presentations tonight. One involves the Citizens Participation Group, and the other's on the municipal budget. What I'll do is I think we'll address the first one right now. We'll take a break in between before we address the budget.
Go into regular session first.
Oh, yeah? Okay. I need Cynthia's asked that we go into regular session, so I'll need a motion from one of the fellow council members here to...
Motion to go into regular session.
Second.
Take a roll call there, please. Joe?
Mr. Mellevay?
Yes.
Ms. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mr. Basco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
And what business do we have for regular session today?
We have a public hearing. CDBG? Yes.
Oh, yes, the...
Introduction of the amendments.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so would representatives from the Citizens Participation Group come up? I don't know if I see Tom here. Bill's going to do it? Okay. Hello, Rob.
Hello.
Mr. Good, how are you?
For the public's benefit, we will take a break right after this presentation before the municipal budget presentation. Thank you.
Flip the switch on.
Yeah, hit the, yeah. That.
Made a difference.
Yeah, not much, right? Well, actually, this set of lights is out.
Yeah.
You know the bank of lights, John? Which one to hit? Okay.
Robert Good, 28 Woodstown Drive, Chairman of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and honorable council members. I'm here tonight to ask for your support in regards to Howell Township's application for a community development block grant. We had our public hearing before this meeting, and we were unanimous in the project that we want to support, and hopefully we'll get your support also. And what that project is to put our application in for a redevelopment of approximately 3/4 of a mile of Ford Road, which is in the southern half of town, all the way at the bottom of the township. In fact, I will pass out a map to you.
So while he's passing that out, you can continue with your first, I guess, general description of what's going on, and then.
All right. What this is we have an application deadline to Monmouth County by June 30th, and again, this is the Community Development Block Grant application, and what the project that we want to support this year and ask for your support on is Ford Road, which you can see on the map up there. The red line is actually Ford Road. I know that particular chart is kind of hard to see, but you also have the graphic right in front of you. The grant that we're going for is $200,000, which will be the first phase of approximately a 4-year phased reconstruction of that particular roadway. I had the opportunity to take a ride down to Ford Road today. I don't know if any of the council members have been there recently. But my impression of the roadway was that it looks like it was formerly a dirt trail that at some point in prior years the township just went down there and kind of threw some asphalt down and just put it down. It's really one of the worst road rates I've been on in the township. And I think that this roadway is definitely in need of some reconstruction. And I believe that decision is supported by our township engineer, Bill Nunziato, and Tom Savino, who did a lot of hard work in regards to this. The first grant we're going for is $200,000. And we expect that over the 4-year period that we're going to do this reconstruction, we'll reapply for grants every year. In fact, the township is now in a program that we automatically qualify for grants every year, whereas in the previous, before the last census, we only qualified every other year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's true. We actually had a meeting with the county. This is the first year because we were over 50,000 people that we now qualify for each and every year, which is a plus for our community.
Absolutely. But one of the things that goes along with that is the area, the landmass in Howell Township that actually qualifies for the Community Development Block Grant has been shrunk down to literally only 2 areas in town.
Yeah, I see that.
Do you have that graphic in front of you? All right, just to give you a contrast, this is where we were in 1990. I only have one copy of this, but all the shaded area was where the Community Development Block Grant qualified back in 1990, and now we're down to 2 small areas, one off of Wyckoff Road, and then the other area down in the southwestern portion of town, which includes Ford Road. And it was really quite a struggle for the Citizens Advisory Committee to actually find a project to fund this year, and Ford Road won out of the projects that we were considering.
What do you plan on doing down there?
What we're going to be doing down there is really in the area between Kent Road and Route 9 is really a complete reconstruction of that particular roadway. I don't know if you've been down there, Councilman Walsh, but it really looks like a dirt trail that was just asphalt was thrown over. There's a lot of the grading. It really needs to be regraded. I had several meetings with Mr. Nunziato and Tom Savino from our engineering department. We would have to bring that roadway up to code as far as stormwater sewers.
I'll jump in if you want.
Yeah, I'll let Mr. Nunziato take over from here.
Basically, what we are going to do is do a survey of the entire roadway from Route 9 to Kent Road, which will be from the southernmost to the northernmost right-of-way, and we'll do a cross-section and a station of the road in its entirety. And we will install drainage which complies with the new 2004 stormwater regulations, so that we don't have to worry about any of the overlaying and rebuilding the road and having any low spots or any areas where the drainage doesn't work. So not only is it going to be a new road that's not going to be flat and have low areas and ponding areas, but we will actually reconstruct the whole entire road from the subgrade all the way up to a finished blacktop surface. We'll stripe the road, and we'll install any drainage necessary and pipe it to the stream and get all the proper permits. So we'll be in compliance with not only the stormwater, but all the DEP, freehold soils, and any of the regulatory agencies that have jurisdiction on those issues.
And didn't we just have an applicant to the planning board who had to run sewer lines there right in between Kent Road and Route 9, that wanted other people to pay access fees if they cut into there?
Not exactly.
All right, well, fill me in exactly if you could.
No, the one I think you're referring to was required to do an off-site improvement, and he had asked, since it was in his opinion, an exorbitant amount of money, that if he could have anybody else contribute a fair share or something along those lines. But that's not the case here.
Okay.
And again, in that instance, what had happened was we had actually asked the applicant to extend the drainage system so that we could pick up and add in some low areas that were pre-existing. So in other words, he solved some problems that we had. And of course, due to that fact, he had asked for consideration for a waiver.
And he asked if anybody else built and needed to tie in, he wanted them to give money, correct?
Correct. But normally, again, the drainage systems, the township owns it, maintains it. They're normally ours. They're not private systems. So normally, since the town takes it over, those type of agreements really are not effective.
Now, this is Kent Road or Ford Road?
This is Ford Road.
Ford Road.
From Kent Road to Route 9. Kent is the cross street.
Let me ask you a question, Bill. I didn't bring the road repair map with me that we had, the whole project mapped out.
It's down at the bottom.
This is high on the list to be repaired?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And being a sub-collector in the master plan, it's not even considered a local road. It's the next degree up from that, which again gives it, again, a preferential consideration with the
So this was one of the ones that was earmarked to be done soon, and this helps us do it.
Well, actually, we did not put this in the hopes that we would qualify for the funding for it.
Okay.
Is this the road right where Wawa is off of 9?
That's Kent.
That's Kent Road.
That's Kent.
Kent, if you take Kent all the way down, you'll come across Ford Road.
It's right by the was a Valero gas station and Sizzler.
The old Sizzler.
It's the road that runs off in between there.
Any other questions from council members?
I would love to, what does my manager have to say about this?
I also
Turn that
I
mic
took
on.
a tour. We took a tour of all the prospective applications.
Go ahead and pull that mic up, Tom, so it's recorded.
I took a tour of the prospective areas that we can apply, and this area is presents one, I think, the greatest safety issue in terms of all the projects we visited, and it also presents somewhat of a safety issue, I think, for our employees in terms of the plowing the roads being, jarred by some of the things projecting out and holes and stuff. It's a difficult area to clear of snow because of the condition of the road, and it's heavily traveled, and it's consistent with the study we did in terms of prioritizing roads.
As compared to the other section, this would have priority?
Yes, and, well, given the areas that qualify.
There's only 2?
Yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Well,
So
in
that
that
is
other
there's-
section, just so you know, Bob, Ketchum Road was recently fixed, and Elton Adelphia Road is constantly fixed, and Wyckoff Mills, only a few years back, was actually taken care of. So the 3 main arteries through that section have been taken care of,
Okay.
by comparison to this one.
Just a little information.
Any other questions from council members?
I just want to make sure, Bill, obviously you've looked into the qualifications. I was under the impression that road improvement would not qualify you for a CDBG grant. Because I think this has come up before where we wanted to try
No,
and-
it actually does. As a matter of fact, in the 1990 census map, we actually did Freewood Acres on the east side in several years. We did the entire area there. What is qualifying is in those 2 shaded areas on the map that we have provided. Any type of, and it could be drainage, curbing, sidewalk paving, or as similar we had done in the past. For instance, last year we had done the elevator at the senior building and ADA compatibility. We did compliance of the ramps in this building and the bathrooms in the lower level, and then the EPC building as well. Those are the types of things that are applicable to the CBDG.
Okay.
And for the public's knowledge, is this a matching grant? Does the township have to?
The township does not have to pay anything. This is,
I just wanted
Yes.
I wanted the public to know that it is
Right.
not a matching grant, that this is 200,000. The township is not required to put 200,000 up.
again, it all depends on, this is a federal grant. It's a HUD grant. It's packaged in with HUD, and assuming the budget, when President Bush presents it, is consistent and there's no cuts in funding, it's anticipated we should get approximately 200,000. So it's subject to slight fluctuation, but that's our anticipated grant.
I'd have no issues if it was a matching grant to fix a road. We're going to have to pay for it anyway. Give us half the money, I'd be happy.
You don't have to put up any money for this one.
I'm thrilled, but we could also fix twice as much road if we had to.
All right, so Tom, we're in regular session, and I guess there needs to be a motion in a second and actually a public hearing, and the public can come up and speak about this too, and we haven't actually done that yet. So as a next step, I guess I'm going to need a motion to either approve or disapprove of the...
Well, we basically, at this point, we don't need a resolution. We just need a straw poll or consensus or the support of the council for this as our application.
Well, you should wait until you have the public hearing in case someone else has any other
Right.
suggestions, and then you can vote.
But, Tom, do we need a motion in a second? No?
No.
This is just a resolution, not, okay.
Public hearing, just basically to get the input from the public.
All right, so I will now open this to the public to come up with any questions they may have on this particular grant. So anybody wishing to come forward, please come forward now. I see Barbara has her hand up. Come on up, Barbara. Bob, just slide to the side so Barbara can use that mic. Is there another seat there?
I'll get my sticks on.
What a gentleman.
Could I please see the map of whatever area you're talking about? Okay, what shaded areas? And tell me what part of Wyckoff Road was eligible for this and why was that not chosen?
Actually, looks like all of Wyckoff Road was eligible. All of Wyckoff, all of...
Wyckoff Road from where to
half
where?
of Havens Bridge, parts of Ketchum.
Well, without looking at the
24,
map,
she has to
I
have
could
it.
tell you with 100% certainty that this area of Ford Road is exponentially worse as far as the wear, the tear, and just the condition of it than Wyckoff Road.
Yeah, Wyckoff was realigned not that long ago, so they did a lot of that road. Just
Wyckoff from where to where?
Well, again, here, this is part of the eligible area, and Wyckoff Mills Road in here would be part of an eligible area. But again, based on our inspections, this
This
area...
is Wyckoff Road.
I'll
in the
answer that
villages?
question for you, Barbara. You ready?
Yes.
From Casino to Adelphia.
Because that's, okay.
That's correct.
Well, from, yeah, pretty close. Where Highway 9, where it meets Highway 9 all the way up to Adelphia, Wyckoff Road. But it was done, as you know, very recently, based on your impetus to get it started, where they realigned that whole...
We didn't realign it, we just did the S-curve, so that all the fatal accidents stopped.
Right, but I'm saying it was touched. So Ford Road
Yeah.
is in a much
Okay.
greater state of disrepair as comparison to that. And Ketchum Road was recently done, and Havens Bridge up top, they have, the Toll Brothers development, that's been done. Adelphia is constantly done with the new schools and stuff, so that area was much better off than where they're looking at.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to, can I take this?
Sure.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to make sure, because I know when we did that with DOT in my house in the rain over donuts and coffee, because of all the accidents in front of the villages, we did that. I had the township out, I had the DOT out, I had everybody out, and, what's his name, the last man, what was the other manager's name? Anyway, a couple of managers ago, and, yeah, because we had all of these.
You made Tom laugh.
Well, no, okay. I can't remember the guy's name.
I think the decision was made, Barbara, because of the condition, the deplorable condition of Ford Road versus
Okay.
Wyckoff Road, and that's why that road was
all right.
selected. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, Mr.
All right.
Good.
So in other words, this did not take in the villages at all?
No.
Okay, this is just a road issue.
This is a community block grant
Correct.
project
That's correct.
issue.
I had a meeting with Mr. Savino and Mr. Nunziato today, and after our meeting, I went down to Ford Road just to check it out and just to see with my own eyes what we were dealing with here.
Very narrow, too, I know that.
And there's no comparison between Wyckoff and Ford. Ford is in tremendously worse shape than Wyckoff.
Any other comment, Barbara? Was that?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I don't doubt you. I don't doubt it. But just keep in mind also that we've been asking for years and years and years where Woolies butts in from 9. There's a big traffic problem there as far as stop signs go that the DOT refuses to give us some.
Barbara, I gave you a chance to make that one way, and you almost died. Remember? I said, let's make it one-way road.
Well, any more comments on this particular thing?
Thank you very much.
All right, that's is anybody else wishing to speak on this from the public? We have
I wish they would make it one way.
former planning board chair Pauline Smith wants to come up.
Hey, why don't I you sit?
Stay there. You sit. I'm not going to take, just sit on there. I don't sit. I don't trust the wheels on the chair.
Oh, okay.
So, go ahead. Just move that over.
Welcome, Pauline. State your name and
Pauline
address.
Smith, 54 Vanderveer Road. Firstly, please don't be insulted, but it really bothers me. It's Wyckoff Mills Road, not Wyckoff Road. And
Correct.
Right. And it was about 1/10 of the road that was fixed,
You know that.
for lack of a better term. And I'm not judging or questioning. I just want to get the record straight about some things. The rest of the road has not been touched. And I have one question. Was the traffic volume considered? Because Wyckoff Mills Road is so heavily, traffic goes from one light to the other sometimes, stopped. Because so much of not just Howell Township, but southern areas come up Route 9, cut across Wyckoff Mills Road, to Howell Road, to 5 Points to go up 18, and back during the evening. And I think the volume of traffic on the road should be considered.
Well, before you answer that, Bob, I will tell you, Pauline, that if they ever do finish the alternate 9 road through Edinburgh Road, where it cuts through Adelphia Greens, Wyckoff Mills, the traffic on that will be completely lightened.
You're right.
Now, we need to lobby. From what I understood, the county at one time was supposed to do it, but they're saying now it's supposed to be Freehold Township's responsibility to do, and they have not actually addressed that, and it's been like a 10-year ongoing project.
I
so,
don't understand that, and I know that's another issue, and maybe we'll bring it up sometime during a public portion, because that would be good for discussion, and that would be something that we should, because the county had committed to do it.
Actually, Tom, you're over there now. I'm not sure if Tom Anthus is still the manager in Freehold Township, but if whoever it is, have a brief discussion with them about where they are with regards to that project. We should be updated on that.
And if you'd like sometime some background, I'll gladly sit down with you, because we went through the hearing at Planning Board for that particular project that contained an awful lot of information about that, and decisions were made, and those resolutions for Adelphia Greens might need to be checked. But that's another matter. I just wanted to bring that up, and if you...
Well, that road happens to be in this section, the other section, but it's really Freehold Township's responsibility to do. It's not ours. Any other questions with regards to why they selected?
He's going to answer.
Yeah, I'm going to answer Mrs. Smith's question. We did not take into account traffic volumes on the road, and the reason is that we were so constrained by the areas that we could pick for our project. And as I said, the reports that originally came in on Ford Road was that it was in deplorable condition.
I don't
I
argue that at all.
I went down, I travel Wyckoff Mills Road many times during the week, and it is in substantially better shape than Ford Road. I would say night and day is not too much of an yeah, I mean, and we were really constrained by the areas that we could pick. So I think Ford Road is really a worthy project for the council to support.
Not arguing that. And there is just one more quick comment, and I'll get out of your way. But there is a theory that if you fix a road such as Wyckoff Mills Road, make it too smooth and too easy, it's not necessarily a good idea, as long as it's not great big holes and dangerous, because it just speeds up the traffic when there's so much of it. So it's something to think about.
Okay, that's Pauline. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to comment about this particular grant? Seeing none, I'll close the public session of this hearing. All right, Tom, what would you like us to do? Just take a straw poll then if it's a...
I think endorsing the application would actually be most helpful, because it sends a positive we can attach that motion, the minutes from the meeting, saying there was a motion to endorse this proposal, and the reviewers see that as a very positive term.
All right, so even though we don't formally have to, I think, hearing that again, I think we should have a motion a second, and
Well, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you want us to put it in the form of a motion, but I will say that I strongly endorse this project of Ford Roads as part of the community block grant, and hopefully this can be an ongoing 4-phase project for our community.
just one thought there. Did you just say you'd really prefer it to be motioned and seconded?
I prefer to have a motion endorsing the application.
We will make it, that will be made in the form of a motion
Mhm.
endorsing this application.
So I'll need a second.
That motion.
So motion by Cynthia, second by Juan, and please do a roll call there, Jill.
Mr. Malavai?
That's to approve, right, to endorse?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, we will now take a 5-minute break. It's 9:06. We'll be back at 9:11 to do the public hearing on the municipal budget.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 9:16. We now have a quorum. Juan and Cindy and I are here. We're about to go into the public hearing on the municipal budget. And there's also an introduction of an amendment to that municipal budget, which there'll be a public hearing on next week. So when the public comes up as part of this public hearing, address the questions to the main part of the budget tonight, and next week you'll have the opportunity to address the amendment. The first part of this is going to be a presentation by our newly honored manager, Tom Czernetsky. He will go through a slide presentation, and many of your questions may actually be addressed as part of this presentation. So take notes if you already have questions ready, and maybe some of them will be answered, and what remains, you can certainly come up as part of the public
Shut
hearing.
the back door, please.
All right, so
Stanley,
Tom,
please.
the floor in about 10 seconds, once these doors close, will be yours.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is essentially the presentation we delivered at introduction with some changes to reflect the changes council's made and decisions that have been made. So I will start. Okay, what I'd like to do is review local economic conditions, go through a revenue analysis, a budget overview, and proposed capital investments. Okay, local economic conditions. A lot of this was developed as I was trying to learn about the community. The key point here is that our taxes are based on the value of property, and the state has us divide the property into vacant land, residential land, farmland, and commercial industrial. So in 2006, our overall valuation was approximately $2.9 billion.
Which is the same as it's been since the last reval in 91. Until they
Right. Well, except that new properties do come online. The critical point I'd like to point out is that 12% of that comes from commercial and industrial properties, and 83% of that comes from residential property. People are surprised when they see this as 12%, considering all the development that's gone on Route 9. And what I'd like to do is stress the point that, in general, retail development is not an outstanding rateable. It's better than single-family residential, which actually costs more. But there may be other options that, through the master plan process, that we look at to create more commercial wealth than just retail space.
Right.
I'd like to also point out that the assessed valuation increased by 1.49% over the previous year. And that's only about half of what the increase was in 2005. Okay, how do we compare to other communities when we look at commercial, residential, and apartment, the chief components of the valuation? Considering some of our neighboring communities and other communities we often use as a basis of comparison, on this list we would rank 5th in terms of overall commercial strength, and on this column, in terms of residential, we would rank 6th. And we don't have any apartments that are under the assessor's records at this point. Of the commercial, only 2% of our commercial base is considered industrial, which typically if it's not warehouse, might carry a higher value. This is where the municipal property tax dollar goes. It's a chart we like to show every year to indicate that our piece of the pie and the value that that generates isn't that great given the scheme of the tax bill residents receive. So 11 cents. This was the 2005 chart. Rutgers University publishes something called the New Jersey Legislative District Data Book. And in there they do a comparison of municipalities of how much we spend per capita in a municipal budget. And this chart indicates that in Howell Township in 2004, which is the latest version of the book, we spent $653 per resident. If you compare that to Wall, $929 per resident, I think this shows that we run a fairly tight operation. Doesn't account for some differences like trash collection and other things, but in general, I found that it balances out. Taking a look at revenue. Let's start with our tax collection rate for 2006, 97.51%, which is slightly down from the previous year of 97.55%. Picture of our revenue. This chart shows you where we get our various revenues from. Any increase that you might see here in the aid and general revenue, really that's attributed to fees and such, not state aid. State aid has remained flat. The 2006 tax rate for municipal purposes is being proposed now at 53.26 cents per $100 of assessed value. This is an increase of 7.69 cents. For the average home assessed at $150,000, this increase equates to $128.58 for the year. The proposed budget, expenditures in the proposed budget are below the 3.5 maximum cap index by $1.8 million. That is a state regulation that says if we exceed the cap, we would have to go, I believe, go out to referendum. That's where the state even says we're getting ridiculous if we approach that figure. The first item of revenue I call to your attention is the amount of surplus we propose to use. Our surplus balance is $7.4 million. What's usable in that is $6.3 million, and we're proposing to use $6.2 of that. So we'll be using 84% of our surplus balance, and it makes up 15.5% of the budget.
Now, Tom, this one particular discussion item is always a point of confusion for the average taxpayer. So explain exactly what surplus is and why only a certain percentage of it can be carried forward into the next, or actually maybe we can have Jeff do it.
Sure, yes. I'll defer that to Jeffrey.
Real quick, surplus in municipalities, since we do not operate at a profit, is excess revenue over our expenditures. It really is if you look at it in the commercial aspect, it is excess money that we collected over the years. It accumulates in the account. We use it as a buffer to keep the tax rate from spiking and bouncing around too much.
All right, so it accumulates from revenues that we don't necessarily budget for at the beginning of the year, but maybe through the court system. Exactly.
We're not allowed to budget for added ratables or growth in the town, and that creates surplus whenever anybody builds a house for the 1 year. We always do our reserve for uncollected taxes. We aren't as aggressive in our calculation on that, so that we do ensure that we replace some of the surplus we use from each year.
Close the door in the back.
Sorry about that, Jeff. Just let them close the door again.
Not all surplus is usable. For example, if you do an emergency appropriation, you have to reserve what you put aside in emergency to cover that. So
is there a percentage number, Jeff, that is there a percentage that you're not allowed to go above as far as what you can use of the surplus?
No, there isn't there really isn't any state guidelines on the municipal side like there is for a school, where there are guidelines on a school system as to their surplus. In ours, the majority of the surplus that we have not used in this budget is restricted surplus that we could not use if we wanted to, because we have several deferred charges that are sitting on our books right now, and we need to retain that surplus at this point in time. So that's the only restriction we have on the municipal side is number one, any of the deferred charges, any items that we need to retain surplus for, and just prudent budgeting.
Last question from me, and I'll ask the other council members if they have a couple.
Would you give me an example of deferred charges that you're talking about, sir?
Yeah, we have two right now, or actually three. We had an emergency appropriation that we authorized last year. Actually, there were two of them. There was also a 5-year deferred charges for the reevaluation and the master plan update, and they're items that you appropriated for and put budget appropriations for, did not raise all the money for in 1 year.
Let me kind of approach that a little bit differently. What the state, so you sort of pay the price a little bit for bad budgeting across the state. What the state does not want to happen is budgets to be introduced at a lower tax rate and then amended down the road. So what they've done is set up a series of obstacles to doing appropriations mid-year. And so, first of all, you're limited in terms of what you can do. And like some of the things that Jeffrey mentioned, you can treat as emergency appropriations. But what the state says is you need to reserve in your surplus the pay down on that emergency, because we borrow to fund those emergencies.
Right.
So that payment you need to fund in your surplus. And that's just sort of one obstacle to towns getting around the budget laws.
Last question from me, Jeff. Now this year in particular, it's a little over $6 million. In previous years, I see it's usually about that amount, $6 million, $7 million, et cetera. Although you did mention that housing starts are down, so we're not getting monies from that as much. So what made up the majority of the $6 million this year? What would you attribute that to?
We're basically we're holding our own. We replaced all but 200,000 of our surplus, or 300,000 of our surplus from last year. We have reached equilibrium where, in our budgetary, we look at, and I spent a lot of time calculating out how much surplus do I think we can regenerate, and use that figure as a guideline as far as what to use, because it certainly does not help future years to use it all up in 1 year, all up in 2 years. And we have found over the years that's the equal basis. The way we budget and the we talked about the 1.5% leeway in the reserve for uncollected taxes. We recover and we replace that $6 million each year. So we're it's like a constant revolving fund that remains pretty much constant over the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor, I would call your attention to this. I'm sorry if you can't see this, but this is this column tells us how much of the surplus we're using to support the budget. In 2005, we used 84.28%. And we're at about that same area, as Jeffrey said. We're sort of reaching an equilibrium.
That is page H in the Green Book, if
but
you want to look at it
going up
closer.
the column, you can see generally we've used smaller percentages of the surplus to support the budget. So we're getting tighter and tighter. And it's always good to carry a good surplus, because that is your cushion for future years. And I think a sign of a well-managed municipality is if you're going to have tax increases, you sort of try to anticipate things, and you don't have radical spikes.
Right.
That is, and I know from having written reports to get a bond rating for previous employers, that is something that Wall Street looks to as well, financial stability. And that translates into better bond ratings, which translates to lower interest rates.
Right.
And our bond rating, Jeffrey, is?
A+.
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay. This is an overview of the expenditure side of the budget. And I'll get into the details of these line items as we go through. But salary and wages is up 1.1%. Operating expenses are up 8.8%. Much of that has to do with mandated increases. A very small fraction of this is what I would call controllable expenses. And under what we would term controllable, we're putting towards a grant to fund improvements, facility safety improvements at our schools. Deferred and other. Jeffrey, you want to handle, explain what this increase is compared to 2005? Well, actually, you covered that already.
That's the deferred charges, and it actually is deferred charges in the pension plan, the pension payments, which we've talked about before, how they keep increasing.
Okay. The capital budget, this includes down payments for issuing debt, and not all this gets used necessarily as the 5% down payment. We like to accumulate the capital account also in case there are emergencies, and we might be able to tap into that for, let's say there's a road collapse or something like that, and it won't cost too much to repair. We'd be able to access that without having to issue debt. So it's always good to carry a small balance in capital, but I'll demonstrate to you how we haven't been investing in that over the years as well as we should be. Debt service is, most of this is this increase in debt service is mostly attributable to our open space efforts. And the reserve for uncollected taxes, this portion of the budget reflects the fact that the township is the tax collector for everyone listed in this pie chart. When all these folks here budget, they budget 100% collection rate, and they don't have a tax collector. We're the tax collector. So the difference between this collection rate and 100% is this. So that when we get the bill from the school, the county, we have the funds to meet that. So the total budget proposed for 2006 is $40.4 million. It's a 9.91 increase over the 2005.
How much did you say?
The 40 million.
40.4 for 2006 compared to 2005, it was 36.7, so it's a 9.91% increase. And that's in expenditures. It's not adjusted for revenue increases, though. Okay, here are some of the massive increases we've seen. Well, we'll start. Contractual salary went up. We've entered into contracts with 3 labor unions. So those increases are impacting the budget at $743,000. Pension is impacting this budget over last year's at $473,000. Social Security increases at $50,000, and fuel and utilities at approximately $200,000. Here are some, I always like to point out, what sort of tangible value will residents realize as a result of this budget. So some of the things that council's included in here include enhanced school safety improvements, new recreational facilities, in particular the bottom fields that are currently being developed, and it would fund Phase 2. We're now doing curbside pickup of cardboard, which we haven't done in the past. Various road and traffic safety improvements, some capital investments to improve snow removal, leaf removal, and bulk pickup, lake dredging equipment, and improved engineering services in terms of staff. In 2005, 50.3% of the budget went to salaries and wages. In 2006, 46.03% is going towards salaries and wages. We're only proposing one additional employee this year. We're proposing an assistant engineer and surveyor. And I just, in terms of the overall picture, how many employees do we have and where are they located? We have 270 full-time employees. The area where there is an asterisk in the construction code department, engineering department, land use code enforcement, finance, MIS, the manager's office, I would note that the municipal efficiency report indicated that these areas could benefit from some additional hires. So in evaluating the report, which it was actually an excellent investment on council's part in serving as a guide, in thinking about where we can make the most customer service improvements and ones that would be funded through fees other than taxes, the recommendation was to bring in another professional in the engineering department. And in addition, as you know and as you've seen tonight, Mr. Nunziato plays a vital role in our community, is managing numerous projects, and we have no plan of succession in that office. So the discussion we had in developing this with council is that this is the one area that we would fund. Last year we made some some changes in our insurance carrier, and in our 2006 budget we're realizing a 14.5% reduction in cost. Going back a few years, we did not have to meet a pension contribution for either public employees or police and fire employees. The state is now, because of shortfalls in the pension fund at the state level, we are now being requested to make additional contributions in intervals of 25%. So in terms of PERS, the Public Employee Retirement System, this year we'll be funding 50%. Next year it'll be increased again, and the following year it'll be increased again until we reach 100%. So you see this difference here in PERS. Last year we budgeted $51,000. This year we're budgeting $145,000. And police and fire retirement system, really same thing. Social Security increased by 3.9%. That's a function of payroll increases. And these are the capital improvements that council has so far discussed and handled individually that will be forthcoming in a capital bond ordinance. It includes a road overlay program, Bonham Fields Phase 2, the OEM building communication system, traffic radar, curbs and sidewalks, intersection improvements, an ambulance for the Farmingdale squad, for Howell Farmingdale, excuse me. This is a rotating investment that council makes every year among the various squads. The senior citizens van, a laser measure for the police department, Oak Glen basketball court improvements, senior citizen center elevator, lake dredger, tank claw, which is public works equipment, basically like a backhoe type thing. Sewer department improvements, the stormwater management plan, implementation, 2 replacement trailers for recreation, a leaf vac and spreader for public works, 2 new DPW dump trucks, gun replacements and a traffic counter. We're getting many more requests to do traffic counting. We need to improve the interior of the water tower that serves the municipal campus. Echo Lake pedestrian improvements from the spillover parking lot. Police and library improvements. This is actually funding various HVAC improvements and septic systems. Copiers and other office equipment. 4 administrative vehicles and technology improvements. And these items were all handled individually through the review process. Okay, just giving you because when we talk about capital, that means we're going to be issuing debt. In 2005, we had $41 million in debt. Our annual debt payment is approximately $3.4 million a year. And our total borrowing capacity, it doesn't deduct for this, but our total capacity as a community is $173 million to borrow. Once we introduce the bond or capital ordinance and we issue the debt, the initial payments on that would add approximately $589,000 to our debt payment. I wanted to point out to you that the amount we're setting aside for capital is fairly equal to last year, but you can see in 2004 we really replenished the capital fund. Another component, revenue component, but it's dedicated, is for open space preservation. The Open Space Trust Fund, funded by a 2-cent tax, brought in $582,000 in 2005. We're anticipating $588,000 in 2006. The current trust fund balance is $1.4 million. $682,000 of that is committed to the farmland preservation resolutions and others that are in the works that you voted on last week. Free balance is $719,000, which will be used to fund a portion of the open space debt. Our open space debt is $20.4 million. Annual debt service on open space is $1.3 million. This includes Bonham Price, Lake Louise, as well as Harms.
That 20 million number is part of the 41 million in total?
Yes.
Okay.
Note here where I noted that
Okay.
that portion's for open space preservation. And sewer surplus, the bottom line here is we're anticipating to run a deficit of $555,000 for 2006, but we do anticipate, yes, we're generally hopeful that won't be as bad as Route 9 properties come into place.
Can you step back? That wasn't that you said 500 of a deficit. It was only 178. Can you? Yeah, of deficit, not yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, if I can clarify, the 176 deficit was the deficit actually realized in 05. The 555, now that has to be included in the budget of this year. The 555 is the gap we anticipate in 06 as far as balancing the budget.
Okay, thank you.
I have one other question, Jeff, which I talked to you offline before the meeting, actually, which may be a benefit to the public, too. There was some discussions about interest dollars that had not been in previous years accounted for that we now have to recognize this year. So maybe go through a 1 or 2 minute explanation on that. That $200-something thousand amount that was in the one line item here on page 36, I think it was.
Is that in amendments, Jeffrey? That's one of the amendments.
Oh, it is?
For introduction, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I'll discuss that when we discuss the what we're doing on the amendment.
All right.
Can I go back to the sewer for 1 second?
Yes.
We're going to have a deficit of $555,000 this year projected?
Yes, sir.
How are we running at a loss like that?
Surplus. Help from actually what is happening now is there is a budget appropriation in the current fund from the taxpayers to support that budget, to balance that budget this year. So it's kind of the reverse of what happened several years ago when surplus was transferred over to the current fund.
So are we going to have to raise the sewer rates again?
I'm not advocating that at this point in time. Route 9 is going to bring in more customers. So the rate's stable as far as treatment costs this year. I just read that Ocean County Utility Authority is raising the treatment cost rates another 4% for next year. I don't think MRSA, that did absorb the rate increase this year, is going to be able to absorb it. If the rate goes up, which is 75% of our budget, we will be forced to adjust our rate. We have no choice in the matter at that point in time. So I think we have to monitor it this year. We have to look at it. I think next year we possibly may be forced if for some unknown reason the rate angels look down upon us and they don't, and MRSA does not raise the treatment cost rate next year, then we'll look at our rate for sure. But I think Route 9 will help to take a lot of pressure off of the sewer utilities as far as operating deficit.
So you think Route 9 is going to eliminate a $555,000 deficit?
Not entirely, no, but I think it'll go a long way to do so. Remember, we get a big shot of money in the beginning because on Route 9, not only do you get the sewer users that are then going to start, and many of them are commercial, that are then going to start paying a sewer rate, but you get the connection fee up front, too.
Jeff, you got to help me here. What's a long way? I mean, that's a nice abstract, vague answer, but there's a $555,000 deficit. We had a $176,000 deficit in 2005. Is that correct?
That's right. That 176 is reflected in the 555 projection, too, by the way.
How much is one connection fee, just out of curiosity?
One connection fee is $1,500.
Okay.
My estimation on Route 9 with the commercials, which are more than one unit, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $400,000 in connection fees alone.
And you think they'll all be done in 2006?
I don't know. I certainly hope for so. They should be, based on Board of Health rules, they should connect within the year.
But if they're not built yet, some of them, is this projected on some of them that'll be built also?
No, this is not projected
or just
on
what's already
it's
existing?
projected on what is there.
I'd like to see some more background information on that if I could, Jeffrey, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
Continue, Tom.
Okay. In terms of capital projects that the governing body budgeted for in previous years that are still in the works, we have money set aside for an architect to help us plan the municipal building. We're digitizing records that are now sitting in a trailer. We have the 2005 road improvement program that will be coming before you shortly for in terms of bid awards. We have the park and ride improvements that are actually, I would 99% complete now. The OEM building construction, we need to do some interior finishing for the restrooms and the office space. Bonham Fields, Phase 1 is currently under construction. Freewood Acres Park, we did a nice community workshop about a month or so back. We're now finalizing the plans. The engineering department is translating all that into concept plan. Old Tavern streetscape, these are the safety improvements. We have a concept plan we received from the engineer, and we're scheduling an appointment with the county highway department to review those plans, to make those safety improvements. The salt shed just went out to bid. We want to improve how residents flow through the court area. We had funds set aside for open space acquisition, and a good deal of progress has been made there, both in actual acquisition and farmland preservation. Various public work equipment replacements, and these areas here were sort of capital improvements that money's been set aside for, but were tied to a grant. That's the Nature Center, Old Tavern streetscape, Aldrich Lake dredging, and the senior citizen elevator.
I noticed, Tom, when you were showing some of the costs, is this excess money for the dredger with the grant we got from the state, or is this?
Yes, this is they gave us, well, actually, I'll let Mr. Nunziato explain. He has the details.
The grants we got from the state for dredging, we got two separate grants. One was $100,000, one I believe was $175,000.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, we would require the
235?
Correct.
Was in excess to buy them?
Yes.
Okay. I also noticed that the elevator for the senior center, wasn't that tied to a grant also?
Correct.
Yes, that was a 2005 Community Development Block Grant. which we should be going out to bid shortly, and that would have been our share over and above what the county would award us. We
So-
got about 181,000, I believe, from them.
And so the 100,000 is going to be extra.
We haven't gone out to bid yet, but that is what the architect anticipates the construction cost would be.
Okay. Because I noticed they were brought, this was because they were tied to grants also, I remember.
Okay. Contributions to community groups, to first aid squads, we will be donating $210,000, and Farmingdale Fire, $7,500, and that's it. That's the presentation.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Don.
Thank you.
Any questions from council members first before we open this up? And we've kicked this around quite a bit over 6 months.
I think that we have kicked this around for not weeks, but months.
Mhm.
I think that you've done a thorough job in explaining every aspect of the budget.
Thank you.
I think it's been clear for the public. I think
It's good to finally see a budget in plain language where
Yes.
I can understand it.
it's black and white.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the dais here?
I just have one before we start
that alone.
the public hearing. So there isn't any confusion, and I know, Bill doesn't know finance too well, noticed a few changes. The green booklets do reflect the amendment that we have not yet talked about.
Which is going to be heard next week, right?
So they reflect the final budget as is proposed to be adopted next week.
The ones
So
that public
these
has.
numbers are just slightly different than the numbers that Mr. Chernesky was presenting.
I would say in my, I appreciate the compliments. I would just say my previous job, I had to do what Jeffrey does, and so I wasn't really able to do any of this too much, and so I enjoyed doing it. But the quality of his spreadsheets and his ability to access them and give the information and help us translate it into this is terrific, and we spent a number of nights trying to hammer this out, so I want to thank Jeffrey and his staff also for their hard work.
Golf clap.
We have to open the public hearing.
Yeah, so,
I appreciate all your effort, too. I know I've asked many questions along the line. I've called you sometimes to ask. I stop by Jeffrey's office a couple times a week, and it's been very informative. And, I think I was elected to ask questions and try to figure out what's going on. And you've done an outstanding job of answering a lot of the questions I have, and I'll let you know I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Okay, now I'm going to open this up to the public for a public hearing on the municipal budget. Remember that we're talking about the budget, the main part of it, not the amendment pieces, which Jeff just told you are in the green book. So anyone who would like to be heard on this, please come up. I see Barbara has her hand up. Barbara, you're first. Again, state your name and address when you do come up, right into the mic.
Barbara Dixell, Villages, Howell Township. It bothers me about the sewer deficit because I distinctly remember that there was a lot of money taken out of the sewer department, whatever, funding budget, whatever, and put in the capital budget. And it somehow wound up to be part of that Ramtown roadway. There was also a reduction in the sewer rates, and there was also the people in there got money back, whether $5 whatever or something, they got money back. So they got a reduction in the sewer rate. They got, I think money was taken out of the sewer department twice, around 2004 or something, and put into the capital budget. And lo and behold, because I went to the meeting in the school, in the Ramtown school, and lo and behold, that $50,000 or something like that wound up to be the road in Ramtown, or the proposed road in Ramtown. So I'm real upset about the sewer deficit.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Dixell, but the $750,000 went into the operating budget and did not go into capital.
Well, it went in someplace, and it came out of the sewer department, so.
It did come out of sewer, it did go in as a general revenue into the operating budget of the township and went to pay for the the normal expenses of the operation of the township.
Well, I'm sorry, but I remember $750,000 coming out as part of this expense for the road in Ramtown.
Well,
Because, did you go to the public hearing in the Ramtown school?
Coincidentally, the cost of the road coincidentally was estimated at $750,000,
Right.
but that was not funded through the sewer money.
That was a
correct.
capital improvement.
Well, I don't know, but I'm not happy about seeing the sewer department deficit, and like I say, there was a reduction in the rate, and they got a rebate, and money came out of there and went in someplace else, so I'm
That point's
not
well
happy
taken.
now.
Actually, what you bring this up now, we actually did, if you remember back to those public hearings at the school, did talk about that we knew we'd probably be short this
Yeah,
year,
right.
with the stuff coming on, and that it would right itself. So this is a good year for analysis coming up now with the Route 9
But the
project coming online.
$750,000 was taken out twice.
No,
I don't remember
Barbara.
until once.
No, once.
Keep in mind, there was an excess, so that we had the ability to pull that out.
Okay, well, so now you have a deficit, so you just kicked yourself in the butt.
We'll see this year. After this year, we'll know whether
See,
we did
people
the
just
right.
kicked yourself in
whether
the butt, so now you got a deficit.
Well, we reduced the rate by $8 from 161
You
to
know what?
153.
Don't borrow from Peter to pay Paul.
Okay, let us talk, though.
The
Calm
rate
down.
reduction was $750,000. If you equate the $5 a quarter to each one of the users.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that our deficit was $179,000 last year, it means that we did not grossly overestimate the rate reduction. What did happen is the growth within the system stopped.
Right, well,
We didn't have
say that
any
again, so everybody
developments
hears this.
added last year. We didn't have any big commercial developments added last year. So that's the reason we ran a deficit. And that's one of the reasons why I anticipate that the deficit probably will not be as great as we anticipate. We cannot project more money than we got last year, even we know we're going to get more.
My final comment on this, Barbara, is that it's not our role to overburden taxpayers. So if 161 was too much and we reduced it to a certain amount we think is going to be right, I'm willing to let that play out based on the analysis that Jeff did to make sure that we're not overburdening the taxpayers. If they should really be paying 153, let them. Let's not take extra money for no reason.
I just don't want to
So we'll
see
see
us
after this year.
taking money out of another, the sewer department or something and putting it someplace
Your
else.
point was well made.
Because we're just kicking ourselves in the butt, and now we're in the hole.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to be heard on the budget? I'll ask one more time. Okay. Pauline Smith, please come on up. Come up to the mic.
I wanted to wait a while because I need to cool down.
Okay. Well, come up and state your name and again an address when you do come up to be heard on this. I can lower the air conditioning again if you want.
No, it's okay.
I know what you
won't
meant.
now.
I know what you meant.
Ms. Smith, I don't want to intrude on your time, but thank you
by
for
all-
pointing out the notion of logging repairs. We do that.
Good.
And last week I gave a 5-year review of the cost for those two particular vehicles. But what we don't do is keep track of time in a shop. And so because
We'll be doing that, too.
because you pointed that out, I went and looked, and now we know.
So you'll do that in the future, so that
Yeah, we're
you'll
gonna add
have a
that.
record of each vehicle, so you'll know how it behaves and
Right.
when
So-
it needs to go.
Right. So we have a record of
Right.
maintenance costs,
Right.
but not time out of the field, which is a value also.
Right. Very good. Thank you for mentioning that. And thank you. This was great. It points out actually some of the things that I was going to say, but I don't know if they realize them. Oh, did I not put my name on record yet?
Go ahead again, just in case.
Pauline Smith, 54 Vanderveer Road. Before I start on my comments, I'd like to clarify something that may or may not be appropriate because of amendments, but I'd like it clarified. I assumed when I saw under capital for 2006, the Phase 2 North Howell Little League, the $230,000, so I assumed the amendment was going to take it out because you said you weren't going to do that. But it's included here.
That's that was a carryover from the previous budget introduction.
If I may eat crow for a few minutes. I misunderstood manager at the meeting last week over the fact that I understood it that it would be projected in the capital budget because the capital budget is just a spending plan. That it's
Right.
not an authority to spend until the ordinance is done. and that it would not be provided for in an ordinance until everything got sorted out and analyzed. The manager has since, set me straight that is to come out of there. The official, and it does not have to be reflected in the resolution, since it is just a spending plan and not an appropriation. So that will be corrected next week, and it will not show in the official budget. The booklets I'm not going to photocopy, but in the official budget document, we will take that capital item out of there.
Right. And then that's the contrary to the other things, because you said most things do appear in here already.
Most things do appear, but that was an item that he pointed out to me today after the books were photocopied. So that will be corrected by next week.
But the real important part is when we vote on the capital ordinance, which lists all the improvements that are to be made. But we discuss it now as part of the big picture.
I understand that, but you will be exposed to my opinion for the first time if you haven't heard about it already. And that's plain and simple. I'm sick and tired of giving up my needs for other people's wants. And when I say it's just an example, because there are thousands and thousands of me's in Howell Township. The young people who can't afford to buy here, so they have to move away from their families. The older citizens who can't afford to stay here but would like to stay in their homes. We cannot afford to pay to take from our needs to pay for other people's wants. And by that I mean things like the Bonham Tract. That would be $1.5 million out of this budget. The children had the fields to play on. It was set up, it was bought with Green Acres money, and it was always from the very beginning planned for only portable equipment so that there wouldn't be any detriment to the environment. And there will be detriment to the environment if that's built the way it's planned to be built, with our taking money from our needs. I want to tell you right now that all I get from my tax dollars are the roads plowed. I don't benefit from it. And that's okay, because it takes tax dollars to do the necessary things. And I think you guys should stick to the next necessary things. And by example, how it affects, we're bonding all this money and we don't pay for it right this minute, but our debt service is, as you can see, you saw on the numbers that were up there, over 300% of what it was 3 years ago. It's 90% of what it was last year. Again. So that all adds up. It's way too much money for things that are not absolutely necessary. And times are going to get worse. Has anybody noticed the for sale signs? And they aren't all just because people want to transfer or buy a bigger house because they can't pay their mortgages. And I feel bad for them, unfortunately for me. Tom mentioned the improvement of now curbside cardboard pickup. That's an improvement. But we had to pay for that by having our recycling center closed down several days a week. And there are not all the availability for recycling that we had, maybe not quite as pretty as it could be, but it was there and it was taken care of. I know several people who have adopted roads in Howell that are giving up because even though they take their time, they're mostly senior citizens and young people, scout projects, etc., they take their time to pick up garbage in plain English that inconsiderate people chuck out of their cars, but they have no place to dispose of it because it's not available to them anymore. So they're giving up adoption of the roads, which is sad for everybody because we're not going to stop those inconsiderate people. This is the highest municipal budget in the history of Howell Township. And we can't afford to spend money because the pendulum always swings back. As I said, the economy is going to be in trouble just the way it was in the late 80s and early 90s. And there's nothing that you can do about it. I can't blame you. But I can blame you if you spend a lot of money and have us paying debt service of a constant 300 times every 3 years. And that's what's going to happen. And open space, and I believe we should give up a lot for open space. But it's not open space anymore after you've built on it. And I know you plan on building on a lot of this for recreation and whatever. There's not a heck of a lot you can change in this budget, but please heed my warning. And I know that I have a habit of saying what other people only think or talk between themselves, but that doesn't do any of us any good. We all have to emphasize to you that you have to stop spending on what you think might be a wonderful project, and it might be a wonderful project, but we can't afford it, and they're our homes. I constantly hear from the powers that be, our governing body and professionals, referred to as a corporation. The corporation consists of our homes. So we didn't elect anybody ever, nor ever intend to, that will gamble with our homes. And I know, Cindy, I can see that you're paying a lot of attention and taking to heart what I say, and I believe that you care. But I don't, I'd like everybody to pay attention and know that even though I'm the one with my big mouth here saying it, that most of us out here think this way. There's only a small handful of people that want more for their tax dollars than they're entitled to. And please don't be misguided by them. I'm really kind of tired of hearing upscale. Upscale's no better than we working class people. And Howell Township has always been and will remain with a big fight working class people. And I just appreciate you listening to that. As I said, in this particular budget, there are only a couple of things that I'd like to see. I'm really surprised to see that the Environmental Commission has less than $1,000. This group of people who, when you're bonding money and you're building things for private leagues, etc., but the Environmental Commission doesn't even have enough money for education, for seminars and information and education, when they take their time and are dedicated and really do for us. And it doesn't cost any more than that. And I really...
On that note, if I can interject for a second,
Certainly.
what would you think would be a fair amount to give to that committee so the people could be trained further than what they are now?
That's not up to me to say. I just...
Well, just a ballpark. You said that
double. It's a little less than $1,000. Double that would be more than I'm
no
sure
fairness,
they'd be
Pauline,
happy
I don't
with.
think that they have come forward with a request either.
Yeah, well,
so how am I supposed to know what their needs are?
I don't know who made the budget, but judging from budgets in the past and the requirements and what they usually do, this is a lot less.
I think what Juan and I are
I
both...
didn't even talk to Don about it.
I think what
just
Juan and I
said
are both
it.
saying, we know the importance of that environmental committee and what service it provides to the planning board, for example. So
Right, and
what you're talking about is minimal dollars. Like last week we
That's
talked
right.
about, let me just finish. So last week we talked about the school system not standing up and offering just minimal dollars. If it's that minimal, I think we probably could find it somewhere. So that's why I asked you, what do you think the ballpark would be?
There were 2 points. Number one, last year's budget was $1,860, of which $399.95 were spent. So the amount of money that they are appropriated, $995, is still $600 more than last year's actual expenses. Secondly, we do have contingency, which is a $25,000 appropriation for unanticipated expenditures, that if there is a large expenditure in environmental terms, could be handled.
All right, so Pauline, as a policy board, I agree with Juan. We never knew about this need, so just come up with what you might need, present it to the council on another date, and then we do have some monies that we can apply to that.
One thing comes to mind. They did have the lab downstairs for water testing for the streams, and I don't know what happened to that equipment. Nobody knows, but it was either destroyed or disappeared.
Oh, I certainly hope not, because that was expensive equipment.
It was equipment, but I think you should check with them because the last I heard was Janet was still chairman, which was before Don, and they couldn't put their hands on the equipment, and some of it that they did have knowledge of was no longer usable.
I know, well, we're skirting off the budget, but we'll look into that.
Yeah, well, it actually, that was just an example of things that they do that are so important.
It is a very important and viable commission to this
and-
community. Yes, it is.
So, and I noticed the other thing was, and I know that employees do the budget, but the planning board itself should do the budget. I did the budget when I was chairman, or we all did, but I chaired discussion on the budget. I noticed there really isn't anything for educational books. And I have inquired of a couple of the newer members as recently as about a month ago if they'd received at least the municipal land use law book that we usually got every year, and they hadn't yet. And every couple of years they should get a Cox book. So, and I know they hadn't gotten that in several years, but there's nothing in this budget for such things.
There's $500 for books in both of the boards, planning and zoning.
Did I
There
maybe miss
There is
it?
$500 in there.
Okay, if there is, then I apologize. I just missed it.
Thank you for your apology, Paulie.
Well, I always admit I'm far from perfect, and if I'm wrong, I admit to it.
Very well said.
But that's just an example. My main concern is that all of us do not utilize the services that we're expending so much money for. And we have to be careful. I have spent a lot of years being careful. And there are a lot, as I said, there are a lot of people like us. There are a lot of working class people. And we need to survive. And we will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me ask first if there's anybody else that wants to be heard, and then we'll come on up, Don. Unless he's talking about planning board for stream.
Don Smith, 54 Vanderveer Road. I wasn't going to speak on this, but since the issue with the Environmental Commission came up, and since I am a former member and chairman, I'd just like to point out, yes, Jeff, you're right that we spent very little of the money last year, but a couple things happened last year. Number one, we had budgeted originally to have some money to refurbish chemicals and whatnot for our stream testing program. At the last Environmental Commission meeting, there is a move they'd like to reestablish the stream testing. One of the things, I don't know whether this is really the time to bring it up, the importance of that stream testing. When you want to lay the blame on a developer for contaminating the water, disturbing the waterway, you need to establish a baseline. And this stream testing program provides that baseline. You have something to go by if something happens to that stream after a development's put in.
So when do you think the last time a baseline was taken on the various waterways now?
It's been, I'd say it's been near 4 years now. We lost an awful lot. We had permission from the one commercial development on the one with Lowe's, for example, to gain access to their basin back there and the stream behind them. And we were only able to do the testing once before we lost our lab and all the equipment. Now that equipment, the problem with the equipment, if it's not properly stored, it's no longer usable.
So you think it might have been the case, and that's why it's been discarded?
Yeah, according to Janet, the equipment may still exist, but its usability right now would be very questionable.
So if we had to replace it, what are we talking about?
Oh, if we had to replace it, I wouldn't even want to guess. There were pH meters. Those were the things that they have to be stored, kept in a wet condition. They can't dry out or
they're lost, their usability. But one of the things...
So but what I'm getting at, though, is if it is as expensive as you say, it's obviously not in the budget, correct, Jeff? Right. To replace this, okay.
Yeah, but, you know, we don't even have a promise of a site yet to do the stream testing. So for the commission to say anything about the equipment at this time is rather premature.
To give you some history, Don, there was a request for $5,000 made in the original budget request back September, October.
Yeah,
that request was for
replacement equipment.
Right, because at that time, after conferring with Janet, in fact, Sue down in the planning board office, who acts as the secretary for the Environmental Commission, she got hold of Janet, who had originally purchased that equipment, so was familiar with it, and that was their conclusion, that chances are that equipment was no longer usable.
A couple questions here.
That did not, though, under Bruce Davis, the manager that had our November budget hearings, or November hearings before the
department
manager, did not survive. That $5,000 did get cut out, and the reason for it is we're no closer now than we were then, than we were last year over getting a lab.
Right.
And certainly we need to address the need to get lab space before we go buy more equipment.
Correct.
Okay.
But the one thing I really want to address, the most important thing really, is money for education of the commission members. Now, in years past, the state has provided a lot of education, or even through Rutgers, but it's been free. But all of a sudden, we're seeing now $25, $50. Also, years past, we didn't have members that could take the time to go to those seminars. But now, all of a sudden, we have at least, well, one was just reappointed, and that's Bobby Sue Bowers, who goes to the trouble of going to these, and another one, Vijay Kashari, who has spent her own money to go to Cook College courses or Rutgers environmental courses, but they're doing it at their own expense. And is it
that doesn't
really
make sense
fair?
if you have money in the budget.
Perhaps
I think
I have a solution, if I may.
Go ahead.
As part of my compensation package, my agreement, I'm entitled to attend the International City Managers Association conference. That is in the budget, but I don't intend on going this year, in light of the budget constraints. But I do think the money for training has remained in my budget, in the manager's budget, because I do see a crying need for training, both for members of the staff and volunteers. So if you go through your budget and additional funds are needed for training, we'll handle it from the manager's account.
I just got to clarify one thing. I wanted to bring this up, but I'm not comfortable getting down to the real details because I'm not the chairman of the Environmental Commission. And with your permission, I'd like to have the current chairman, Jeff Pritchard, get in touch with you and possibly learn what he can pass on to the commission.
I'm a great believer in the value of continuing education and training, and
Jeff, by the way, works for the DEP, so in fact he has to step down from any, he can't do any Howell Township wetlands delineation.
Just to wrap this up, I think you're hearing, Pauline and Don, that we're actually in favor of having our people that volunteer for our town trained properly, because it will save us money in the long run when you guys address certain issues that need to be addressed when planning board applicants come before the planning board. So,
with your permission, I'll ask Jeff just to get in touch with you when he can and see what can be worked out. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don.
Is it regarding the budget and quick?
Not regarding the streets. No, it's not.
Just a 1 minute or less, Barbara, because you spoke right, so come on up.
It's not on the budget.
Go.
Well, is it have to do with the budget, dollars for the...
Does it have to do with the budget?
Come on up for 1 minute.
Come on.
I was in Home Depot the other day.
Well, there you go. Wait till you get to the mic.
tell me 1 minute, so. Okay, I was in Home Depot the other day and met somebody who has been involved with the streams and the stream testing. And this person was extremely upset that that the equipment isn't there, the money isn't there. And like I say, I'm glad Pauline brought it up. I'm glad Don brought it up. There is a lot of contamination in our streams, as you know. It's all over please just make the money available. Make the equipment available.
I think that you heard that clearly.
Yeah, just please, because it needs to start. Find the barn someplace. Find the back of a garage someplace.
Barb.
Give them everything they need.
Anything
But
else
get it
new?
started. No, my minute is up, but just get it started.
All right, I am now going to close the public session on this hearing on the municipal budget. Public session is closed.
Mr. Tabasco, yes. All right, you have closed the hearing. What we will do now is we need to introduce a resolution amending the budget. That resolution, I'll explain it, and unfortunately, this is the one each year I have to read in full, both this week and next week. I tried to be a speed talker when I do this.
Go to it.
And next week, we will have a public hearing on the amendment only. So the public hearing next week will be limited to those items that we are changing here in the resolution. If council finds this agreeable and an agreement right after adopting this resolution next week, we will then adopt the budget by a separate vote. There will also be a few other resolutions.
Before you actually start your dissertation on this, I want to ask Tom a question since he spoke so strongly about it last. This is a resolution, Tom, but you last time we had the vote tonight on the CDBG piece wanted us to actually make a motion second and vote on it. What's your opinion this time around? It's a resolution. It's not anything we have to motion for.
Yeah, no, there is a recorded vote. You need to record on this. You do need to.
All right, then.
Resolution introducing the amendments, but we're not voting on adoption of the budget tonight.
We're not voting on adoption of the budget, right? Correct.
Just the resolution.
Just the resolution.
Okay.
All right, as a quick recap, since I'm going to have to read, I'll turn the mic on. As a quick recap, there are 2 grants that we have received since we started on the budget process. The Paris grant we have been awarded. That is the beginnings of our archive system, and the state is paying part of the cost of us studying that and working on an archive system. We also have an enhanced 911 grant. This is to upgrade some of the 911 equipment in the police dispatch. Neither of these grants are matching grants. They're straight, full-fledged, 100% gifts and grants, so they don't have any effect on the tax rate per se. There also is an item, the tax collector. When tax collector got the final budget reports and looked at it, questioned me on the salary and wages, and I found that in putting in the salary and wages, I put in a minus $30,000 rather than a plus $30,000 someone's salary. So the tax collector salaries need to be adjusted so that all the employees are funded for the year. Also, the $10,000 for the fireworks has been taken out, as it has been nicely funded for by private donation. The grant. Because of the item I need to, there is an adjustment to the expected deficit. I had only expected $280,000 deficit in the sewer utility, but I do have a correction I want to talk about in a couple of minutes on sewer utility, so I have to correct the anticipated deficit. And what I have done, as far as current fund, is we know we're going to get about anywhere from $500,000 or maybe more windfall on our delinquent taxes with the closure or the completion of their early property frequency engineering. So I have adjusted, and it's been a slight adjustment of $330,000 to the reserve for uncollected taxes to keep the tax rate neutral. and certainly we are going to produce that much money out of frequency engineering. And I feel very comfortable this year that I have identified a revenue stream that we're able to do that. So I'm sure Council's happy to know that none of these changes will produce a change in the tax rate. Secondly, there is a change of $265,800 in the sewer utility budget. As you know, we 2 out of 3 years we do a self-exam of the budget, and myself and my staff member, my assistant, actually do the functions that the state normally does on many budgets, and that's afforded towns that are considered in good fiscal condition. And in doing so, I found that there was a interest payment for bond anticipation note in the sewer utility for the Route 9 sewer that we forgot. We did not put the interest payment into the budget. So I do need to provide for that, or we'll have bondholders a little mad at me for not paying it. So that, in a short recap, is the changes that are being made in the resolution. With your indulgence, I'll start reading.
All right.
Whereas the Council of Township of Howell introduced its 2006 municipal budget on May 23, 2006, and whereas the public hearing on said budget has been held as advertised on June 20, 2006, and whereas it is determined to be desirable or necessary to amend said budget, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Township of Howell, County of Monmouth, that the following amendments to the 2006 budget be made. Current fund, general revenues, miscellaneous revenues, Section F, special items of revenue anticipated with prior written consent of the Director of Local Government Services, public and private revenues offset with appropriations, Paris grant from $0 to $38,610, enhanced 911 grant from $0 to $46,277. Total Section F special item of general revenue anticipated with prior written consent of the Director of Local Government Services, public and private revenues from $676,297.16 to $761,184.16. Summary revenues, 3 miscellaneous revenues, total Section F special items of revenue anticipated with prior written consent of the Director of Local Government Services, public and private revenues from $676,297.16 to $761,184.16. Total miscellaneous revenues from $16,693,749.35 to $16,778,636.35. Total general revenues, items 1, 2, 3, and 4, from $24,651,749.35 to $24,736,636.35. Total general revenues from $40,333,289.35 to $40,418,176.35. 8, general appropriations, operations within caps, revenue administration, tax collection, salary and wages from $209,921 to $271,663. Celebration of public events, other expenses from $40,000 to $30,000. Total operations within caps from $23,059,949 to $23,111,691. Total operations including contingent within caps from $23,084,949 to $23,136,691. Detail salary and wages from $16,718,193 to $16,779,935. Other expenses including contingent from $6,366,756 to $6,356,756. Total general appropriations for municipal purposes within caps from $24,607,130 to $24,658,872. Operations excluded from caps. Paris grant, other expenses from $0 to $38,610. Enhanced 911 grant, other expenses from $0 to $46,277. Total public and private revenue programs offset by revenue from $653,668.16 to $738,555.16. Total operations excluded from caps from $6,191,899.16 to $6,276,786.16. Detail other expenses from $4,795,317.16 to $4,880,204.16. Deferred charge municipal excluded from caps, cash deficit sewer utility from $289,224.89 to $555,024.89. Total deferred charges municipal excluded from caps from $833,224.89 to $1,099,024.89. Total general appropriation for municipal purposes excluded from caps from $10,820,781.05 to $11,171,468.05. Total general appropriations excluded from caps from $10,827,81.05 to $11,171,468.05. Subtotal general appropriations from $35,427,911.05 to $35,830,340.05. Reserve for uncollected taxes from $4,905,378.30 to $4,587,836.30. Total general appropriations from $40,333,289.35 to $40,418,176.35. Summary appropriations, H1, total general appropriations for municipal purposes within cap from $24,607,130 to $24,658,872. Operations excluded from caps, public and private revenue programs offset by revenues, $653,668.16 to $738,555.16. Total operations excluded from caps from $6,191,899.16 to $6,276,786.16. E, total deferred charges excluded from caps from $833,224.89 to $1,099,024.89. Reserve for uncollected taxes from $4,905,378.30 to $4,587,836.30. Total general appropriations from $40,333,289.35 to $40,418,176.35. Dedicated sewer utility budget, dedicated revenues and sewer utility deficit general budget from $289,224.89 to $555,024.89. Total sewer utility revenues from $5,891,847.17 to $6,157,647.17. Appropriations to sewer utility interest on notes from $0 to $265,800. Total sewer utility appropriations from $5,891,847.17 to $6,157,647.17. Be it further resolved that 2 certified copies of this resolution be filed forthwith with the officer of the Director of Division of Local Government Services for her certification of the local municipal budget so amended. Be it further resolved that this complete amendment in accordance with the provisions of NJSA 48-4-9, be published in the Asbury Park Press in the issue of June 23, 2006, and said publication contain notice of public hearing on said amendment to be held in the municipal building on June 27, 2006, 8 p.m. prevailing time.
Thank you very much for that, for that essay being read there, Jeffrey. All right, we need a roll call vote to, on the resolution piece, the amendment.
Mr. Melloway?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, so just to recap what happened tonight, we had the discussion on the municipal budget, a presentation on it, the public hearing on it. So the public hearing on the municipal budget is actually closed. We then introduced an amendment to the budget, and there'll be a public hearing on the amendment next week, which is what Jeff just read. So only on that next week. And then we'll actually take the official vote on the budget next week as well. Upcoming meetings is the meeting of next week. That's at 8 o'clock. The public portion of it begins. That is our regular meeting for the month on June 27 on Tuesday. Is there anything else to discuss tonight? Any of the officials?
Just a comment, if I may, Deputy Mayor.
Sure.
Just to let the public know that on June 24th, there will be a blood drive taking place at the, it's actually in conjunction with the American Red Cross, and it's going to be taking place at Howell First Aid Building on Kent Road. This is Saturday, the 24th of June. For further details and to make an appointment to donate blood to the American Red Cross, please call the Howell First Aid Building, the First Aid Squad, and they will be more than happy to schedule an appointment.
I think the hours on that are 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
2 p.m., that's correct, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Is that it, Mr. Holiday?
That's all I have.
Anything from Bobby or Cynthia? Anything from the professionals? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.